I want you to picture a specific moment. It's a moment I think almost every single listener has felt at some point. You are standing in a coffee shop, maybe in London, maybe New York, or you're at a hotel check-in desk. And you've done the work. You've spent 3 years on the apps. You've got the grammar textbooks at home. You know the difference between the past perfect and the past continuous.
You are, on paper, a qualified English speaker.
Exactly. On paper, you're a genius. But then the barista looks at you and asks a slightly non-standard question. Maybe they mumble a bit or they use a phrasal verb you haven't seen in the textbook. And you just freeze.
It's the blue screen of death.
It is. Your brain just reboots. You stammer, you panic, and you end up just pointing at a muffin and nodding. It is the universal nightmare of language learning. Why is there such a massive canyon between classroom competence and real-world survival?
It's the gap between knowing the rules of the game and actually playing the sport. And honestly, most traditional education is really good at teaching you the rule book, but it's terrible at putting you on the field.
So that is our mission today. We are doing a deep dive into a methodology that claims it can fix that specific freeze response. We aren't just reviewing a product here, we are unpacking a system. We're looking at the daily English conversation practice material.
Which is a fascinating data set. We're looking at a specific curriculum of 75 distinct topics, audio lessons, and a philosophy they call deep learning.
And I love that term, deep learning. It sounds like something out of, a sci-fi movie or AI research, but the source is using it to describe a very human way of learning. We're going to explore why they chose these specific 75 topics, which range from the totally mundane to the honestly kind of weird, and why they argue that everything we've been told about speaking practice might actually be backwards.
It's a bold claim. They're essentially saying that if you're trying to speak from day one, you're doing it wrong.
So let's get right into it. The core philosophy here involves, well, two main pillars: deep learning and input first. Let's start with deep learning. When the source uses this term, what are they actually telling us to do?
So in the context of this source material, deep learning is presented as the #1 secret to English fluency. And to understand it, you have to look at what it opposes. It's the opposite of school learning.
School learning being the conveyor belt method.
Exactly. Think about how a syllabus works. Week 1, present tense. You take a quiz, you pass. Week 2, past tense. You take a quiz, you pass. You never look at week 1 again. The goal is speed. The goal is coverage. We covered the textbook.
It is a checklist mentality. I did it, therefore I know it.
Right. But the source argues that this approach is fatal to fluency. You have covered the material, but you haven't internalized it. You recognize it, but you don't own it. The instruction in the system is quite blunt. Repeat the same lesson over and over again until you master it.
And they define mastery in a very rigorous way, don't they? It's not just understanding the words.
No. Mastery in this system equals automaticity. That's the key word. Think about your native language. If I ask you, what did you have for breakfast today? Do you have to stop and think, okay, I need the past tense of the verb to eat?
No. I had toast. It bypasses the thinking part of my brain entirely.
That is automaticity. The source argues that to get there in a second language, you can't just listen to a lesson once or twice. You need to listen to it 10, 20, maybe 30 times. It's closer to athletic training than academic study. You're drilling a reflex, not memorizing a fact.
It's muscle memory for your mouth and your ears.
Precisely. And this leads directly to their second pillar, which I know is often a point of debate in the language community: the input-first approach. The source states, in bold letters, listening is the key to better English speaking.
Which, I have to play devil's advocate here, feels a little counterintuitive. If I want to learn to play the piano, I have to touch the keys. If I want to speak, shouldn't I be speaking? If I just listen for 6 months, won't I just be a really good listener who is still mute?
That is the common intuition, and is why people get frustrated. But the source's argument, and this is backed by a lot of linguist theory, actually, is that you cannot output what you haven't input.
You can't withdraw money from an empty bank account.
Exactly. If you try to speak too early, without a massive reservoir of listening patterns in your brain, what happens? You aren't actually speaking English. You are thinking in your native language, and then you are frantically translating word for word into English in real time.
That's the freeze. That's the spinning wheel of death in my head.
That is exactly what the freeze is. It's your brain trying to run a translation algorithm while someone is waiting for an answer. It's slow, it's exhausting, and it usually results in awkward phrasing. The source argues that by flooding your brain with real English conversations, listening first, You build up a database.
A database of patterns.
Right. So when you do speak, you aren't constructing a sentence from scratch like a Lego set. You're retrieving a pre-made chunk of language that you've heard 1,000 times. You just pull it off the shelf.
That makes a lot of sense. It explains why they focus so much on what they call utility.
Mm.
The source explicitly prioritizes frequently used words, common structures, and common phrasal verbs. Quote, they don't seem to care if you can explain the grammatical rule for the third conditional. No, they care that when someone asks about your weekend, you have the idiom ready to go. They emphasize idioms that are much used in daily life. Because that's what trips people up. You can know all the grammar in the world, but if someone says, let's call it a day, and you translate that literally, you're lost.
Okay, so the strategy is clear. Repetition until automaticity and massive input before output. Now, let's look at what we are actually inputting. Because this list of 75 topics, I spent some time scrolling through the curriculum, and it is a journey.
It really is. It's like a snapshot of a human life, broken down into 75 audio files.
It starts predictably enough.
Yeah.
We've got the basics. The source lists the standard survival kit.
Mm-hmm.
Topic 1 is family. Then you have restaurant, weather, hobbies, travel, shopping.
These are the non-negotiables. This is the Pareto principle in action, the idea that 20% of the topics cover 80% of your daily interactions. If you can't order food or talk about the rain, you can't function in society. You have to start there. But then it shifts. It moves into what I'd call the social and emotional tier. We see topics like childhood memory, a memorable event, a friend, a teacher.
And that shift is critical. A lot of learners get stuck at the tourist level. They can buy a ticket, they can ask for the bathroom, but they can't make a friend. Real fluency is relational.
It's about connection.
Exactly. To connect with another human being, you have to be able to tell a story about your past. You have to be able to describe a person you admire. You have to be able to share a memory. That is where you move from speaker to person.
And they even include implied romance and life milestones. Topic 51 is a wedding. Topic 75 is success. It's almost like they want you to be ready to discuss your entire biography.
It creates a curriculum that isn't just about getting by. It's about expressing who you are.
However, here is where it gets really interesting to me. The source includes some topics that I honestly didn't expect to see in a Learn English course. I'm scrolling through the list. Topic 40 is traffic jam. Topic 39 is pollution. And then the one that really stood out to me, topic 74.
Oh, I know. Plastic surgery.
Plastic surgery. It just sits there on the list. It seems like such an outlier.
It does.
Right? I mean, do I really need to be fluent in discussing rhinoplasty to be considered a good English speaker? Why would they dedicate one of only 75 precious slots to that?
Well, let's unpack that. Think about the vocabulary required to discuss plastic surgery. It isn't just medical terms. It's about opinion. It's about judgment. It's about aesthetics.
Oh, that's true. You're saying things like, it looks fake, or she looks great, or it's too subtle.
Exactly. It forces you to learn the language of nuance and social commentary. If you can handle a conversation about plastic surgery, you've graduated from simple descriptions to complex opinions.
That's a really good point. And what about traffic jam or a health problem? Why focus on the negative stuff?
Because fluency isn't just about being positive and polite. The textbook world is always happy. Everyone is smiling, the sun is shining, the train is on time. But the real world is annoying.
Okay.
Real people get stuck in traffic. Real people get headaches. Real people hate the pollution in the city. And here's the key insight. Commiseration is a huge part of social bonding.
Complaining as a social skill.
Absolutely. Think about the small talk you have at the office. Oh, the traffic was a nightmare this morning. I've got this terrible migraine. If you can't participate in that negative small talk, you are actually locked out of a lot of social interactions. You become the person who just smiles and nods while everyone else is bonding over the bad traffic.
That is such a subtle but important point. These specific scenarios bridge the gap between the textbook ideal and the messy reality.
Exactly. And the list doesn't stop there. It pushes into the professional and abstract, too. We've got business, politician, law, goal ambition, and technological advancement.
Which ensures the learner isn't stuck at a beginner level forever.
Right. Discussing law or technological advancements requires a completely different register of speech than ordering a pizza. It forces you to use complex sentence structures. You have to use conditionals. If the law changes, then this might happen. It pushes the cognitive load way up.
So we have the method deep learning and we have the map, these 75 topics. But how does the rubber meet the road? What does a study session actually look like? Because the source breaks down the anatomy of a micro lesson in a very specific way.
Right. Each unit is split into two parts. First, the ESL conversation questions and answers, and second, the real English conversation audios.
Why separate them? Why not just have a conversation?
The Q&A is the scaffolding. It teaches you the mechanics of the interaction. How do you form the question? How do you structure the answer? It appeals to the logical part of your brain.
Okay, so that's the skeleton.
And the real audio is the flesh and blood. It shows you how those mechanics sound at natural speed, with natural intonation, with the little hesitations and flow of real speech. You need both.
Right.
If you only have the Q&A, you sound like a robot. If you only have the audio, you might get lost in the noise.
And here's the feature that I think is the secret weapon for the busy learner, the person the source keeps addressing, saying, you are too busy to join in any English-speaking course.
Yeah.
They highlight that each audio file is only 1 to 2 minutes long.
That is the single most important design choice in the whole system.
Why is the length so critical?
Because of the deep learning requirement. Remember the rule. Repeat until mastery. If the lesson was a 30-minute podcast or a 20-minute lecture, you physically couldn't listen to it 20 times. It would take your entire day. You'd get bored or you'd just give up.
That's true. The repetition would feel like a punishment.
But a 2-minute clip, that's manageable. You can listen to that 5 times in 10 minutes. It makes the repetition strategy actually executable for a normal adult with a job and a life. It lowers the barrier to entry so much that you run out of excuses.
They also include a PDF component, a 79-page transcript file, so you're not just listening blindly.
That's the safety net. For many learners, the ear is the weakest link. They can read the word traffic, but if they hear it spoken quickly in a sentence, they miss it. Having the transcript allows them to calibrate their ear. It's like, oh, that sound equals that word. It validates their listening comprehension so they don't get discouraged.
So we have short, repeatable audio files covering everything from family to plastic surgery. The final piece of this puzzle is where the learning happens. The source is very specific about lifestyle integration.
The anywhere promise.
They explicitly say, put it into your phone or MP3 player and take your English learning anywhere. And then they list these specific scenarios. On the bus while going to work, while exercising, or walking.
This is what productivity experts often call stacking habits.
While shopping.
I love that one.
And while sitting at a coffee shop.
This reframes language learning entirely. It shifts it from a study session, where you have to carve out an hour, sit at a desk, turn on a lamp, and open a book, to a lifestyle habit.
It tackles the #1 excuse people have. I don't have time.
Exactly. The source is essentially saying, you do have time, you are just wasting it. You're standing in line at the grocery store, you're sitting on the bus, staring out the window. That is dead time.
And by utilizing that dead time, you aren't adding work to your day, you're just optimizing the time that's already leaking away.
And because the files are only 2 minutes long, they fit perfectly into those gaps. You wait for the bus for 5 minutes. That's 2 full repetitions of the restaurant lesson.
But is it effective? Can you really learn deep fluency while you're deciding which cereal to buy?
If you are following the deep learning protocol, yes. If you are hearing the lesson for the very first time, maybe not, you'd need to focus. But remember, you're supposed to listen to this file many, many times. By the 15th or 20th time, you don't need 100% of your conscious focus.
You're just letting it wash over you.
Exactly. You're reinforcing the neural pathways almost subconsciously while your conscious brain is picking out apples. It's immersing yourself in the rhythm of the language.
And that consistency, doing 15 minutes a day in the cracks of your schedule, has to be better than cramming for 2 hours on a Sunday.
The research is absolutely clear on that. Spaced repetition beats mass practice every time. Your brain needs sleep intervals to consolidate the memory. Doing a little bit every day is vastly superior to doing a lot once a week.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? If we zoom out, the takeaway from this deep dive is actually pretty empowering.
It is. The takeaway is that fluency is finite.
What do you mean by finite?
Well, when you start learning a language, it feels infinite. It feels like there are 1,000,000 words and 10,000 rules, and you'll never learn them all. It's overwhelming.
It feels like trying to drink the ocean.
Right. But this source proves that you don't need to drink the ocean. You just need to master these 75 buckets. If you master these 75 situations, really master them to the point of automaticity, you cover 90% of what you will face in your actual life.
That makes it so much more manageable. It's not learn English, it's learn topic 1, family, then topic 2.
It breaks the mountain down into steps. And imagine the confidence boost of just mastering one. Like if you just took Topic 47, Hometown, and you listened to it 50 times, you practiced the Q&A, you shadowed the speakers until you sounded exactly like them.
The next time someone asks, where are you from, you wouldn't have that panic.
You wouldn't have the blue screen of death. You would just hit play on the mental tapes you've created. It would come out smooth, confident, and automatic.
And that confidence ripples out. Once you realize, hey, I handled that interaction perfectly, you're ready for the next one.
It changes your self-perception. You stop feeling like a struggling student. You start feeling like a speaker. And that identity shift is everything.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a thought that struck me while we were reading through this source list. We talked about how topic 75 is success and topic 60 is go ambition.
The abstract ones.
The source is selling a method for English, repetition until mastery, deep learning. But it made me wonder, what if you applied that repetition until mastery technique to other areas of your life?
That is a provocative thought.
We're so used to consuming information in the modern world. We read a business book once, we nod, and we put it on the shelf. We watch a tutorial on YouTube once, and we think we know it. But we don't know it deeply. We don't have automaticity.
We have awareness, but not mastery.
Exactly. Imagine if you practiced a negotiation script or a sales pitch or even a coding concept the same way this course treats traffic jam.
Doing the small foundational reps over and over until you could do it in your sleep.
How much faster would you achieve those big Topic 75 goals, success, ambition, if you treated them with the same rigor as learning to order a coffee?
It suggests that deep learning isn't just a language hack. It's a mastery protocol for basically anything you want to be great at.
Something to think about while you're on the bus or shopping or hopefully not stuck in a traffic jam listening to this. Thanks for diving in with us today.
Keep listening. Okay, picture this. You are standing in a crowded room. Maybe it's a friend's wedding reception or, a holiday mixer at your office or even just a neighbor's backyard barbecue.
The classic social obligation zones.
Exactly.
Oh.
And you walked in with a friend. Your one emotional anchor, your social life raft in this, sea of strangers.
The buddy system, always.
Always. But you turn your back for 1 second to grab a paper plate or a drink, and you turn back around, and they are gone.
Poof. The classic vanishing act.
Into the ether.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe they went to the bathroom. Maybe they saw someone they actually know. Who knows? But suddenly, you are standing there holding a lukewarm drink, completely alone.
Oh, I know this feeling.
And you feel it. That immediate magnetic, just irresistible pull to your pocket.
The smartphone pacifier.
Yes. You just want to pull out your phone, bury your face in a screen, scroll through emails you've already read 3 times, maybe check the weather in a city you don't even live in.
Anything.
Anything to avoid looking up. Anything to avoid making eye contact. Anything to avoid small talk.
It is such a visceral reaction, isn't it? It's not just boredom, it's a form of mild panic. And what's fascinating here, and this is what our sources get into, is that almost everyone feels it.
Really? Even the super confident people?
Even the people who look like they are working the room comfortably, so often they have that same internal monologue running. We all say we hate small talk, we roll our eyes at it, we call it painful, fake, useless.
I mean, it's almost a badge of honor to say, I hate talking about the weather. It feels like such a waste of oxygen.
Right. But here's the paradox, and this is really the launching pad for today's deep dive. Dr. Thomas Smithyman, whose research we are really unpacking today, he poses this really funny but profound question.
Okay.
If we all hate small talk so much, why hasn't it gone the way of the 3D TV or the Segway or those those toe shoes?
Or Jar Jar Binks.
Exactly. Why is it still a fundamental, non-negotiable part of the human experience across almost every culture on Earth?
I always just assumed it was a glitch in our social operating system, like a bug we haven't patched yet.
Well, as we're going to find out, it is not a glitch. It is a feature. We are fundamentally misunderstanding what small talk is.
How so?
We tend to judge it as bad conversation because it's not deep or, it's not immediately entertaining like a TikTok video. But Dr. Smithyman argues that small talk isn't supposed to be entertainment.
What is it then?
It is a tool.
A tool. Okay, let's unpack this. Because when I'm stuck standing next to a stranger near the chip ball asking, so hot enough for you? It doesn't feel like a precision instrument. It feels like I'm serving a prison sentence.
It feels that way because you are judging the content rather than the function. To understand this, we have to look at it from an evolutionary and psychological perspective. We have this built-in mechanism called stranger anxiety.
Right, the whole fight or flight thing.
Sort of. It kept our ancestors alive.
Yeah.
When we meet someone new, our primitive brain isn't wondering if they have good taste in podcasts. It is running a background security check. It asks, is this person safe? Are they sane? Do they play by the rules?
So asking about the humidity is actually a security clearance check.
Precisely. The source material uses this brilliant analogy that I think completely reframes the awkwardness. I want you to think of small talk like a scene in a spy movie.
The spy analogy. I loved this part of the research.
Right. So imagine two secret agents meeting on a park bench in Berlin during the Cold War. One of them opens a newspaper and says, "The tulips are blooming early this year." Now let me ask you, does that spy care about horticulture?
No, not at all. They care about nuclear codes or microfilm or something.
Exactly. And the other agent replies, only in the right kind of soil. They aren't discussing gardening. They are exchanging a code. That code says, I am one of you. I know the protocol. It is safe to proceed.
That is such a cool way to look at it. So when I say, wow, it's raining again, and you say, yeah, it's supposed to clear up by Tuesday, we're basically, we're secret agents.
Yes. You are signaling. You are broadcasting to the other person. I am a normal, functioning human. I understand social norms. I am sufficiently sane. I am safe to talk to.
It's a password.
It's a password. And once that signal is received and acknowledged, then you can move on to the real stuff. But you cannot skip the code.
That makes so much sense. If you walked up to a stranger and immediately started talking about your deepest childhood trauma or your controversial political views, you've skipped the code. You've jumped the fence.
Exactly. You haven't established safety. The other person's brain goes into threat mode. They think this person is unpredictable. Unpredictable is dangerous.
And suddenly you're the weird guy at the party that everyone is steering clear of.
Correct. So the mission of this deep dive is to stop looking at small talk as this painful, boring obligation and start seeing it as a masterable skill. It is the drawbridge you have to lower to get into the castle.
And the good news is, it sounds like there's a system to it.
There is. Dr. Smithyman breaks this down into a science. We're going to cover how to read the room, how to actually start the conversation without feeling like a creep, and then the holy grail, how to keep it going indefinitely.
The infinite loop. I really want to get to that because I am the king of the awkward silence. But let's start with the basics, the opener. Because I think that's where most of us we freeze up.
Totally.
We feel like we have to be charming and witty right out of the gate.
And that is the biggest mistake, the wit trap. We think we need a tight 5 minutes of stand-up material just to say hello, but the research suggests that boring is actually better.
Boring is better.
Or at least simple is better, but, and this is a crucial distinction, it depends entirely on where you are.
This is the social environment level framework. I found this super helpful because I definitely treat a grocery store line the same way I treat a wedding, and apparently that is a tactical error.
It is a bit risky, yes.
Yeah.
Dr. Smithyman identifies 3 levels of social expectation. If you use the wrong strategy in the wrong level, that's where the awkwardness comes from. So let's start at the top. Level 1, the high expectation environment.
Okay, paint the picture for us. What's a level 1?
This is your weddings, your house parties, networking events, or maybe a mixer at a conference. These are places where the entire point of being there is to interact.
Right. The social contract of the event is we are here to mingle.
Precisely. So standing in the corner silently on your phone is actually the weird thing to do here.
It's bringing the rules of that space.
Exactly. In a level 1 environment, silence is the awkward choice. If you are sitting at a wedding table with strangers and you just stare at your plate for 20 minutes, you are the one making it weird. You are signaling hostility or, extreme fear.
So the pressure's on, but the permission is also granted.
That's the key phrase. Permission is granted. Because the expectation is so high, you don't need a clever excuse to talk. You don't need a pickup line. You just need what the research calls direct socializing.
Which sounds terrifying to me. Direct socializing sounds aggressive.
It sounds that way, but the script is painfully simple. It's just, hey, I don't think we've met yet. I'm Name.
That's it. No observation about the hors d'oeuvre, no comment on the bride's dress.
You don't need it. In fact, adding the fluff can sometimes confuse the signal. In a high expectation environment, everyone knows the script. They are waiting for the introduction.
They're expecting it.
By saying, I don't think we've met. You are following the standard protocol back to the spy analogy, and it reduces anxiety for everyone
I
involved.
guess that's true. If someone came up to me at a wedding and just said, "Hi, I'm Dave," I wouldn't think, "Wow, Dave is boring." I'd think, "Oh, thank God someone is talking to me." "Hi, Dave, I'm host."
Precisely. You are relieving them of the burden of the unknown. Now, Dr. Smithy Men does offer an ace in the hole specifically for weddings or parties if you want to bridge the gap immediately after the name exchange.
Because "Hi, I'm Dave" is great, but you do need a follow-up.
We need something to launch from. Oh, yes, the how do you know the host question.
A classic.
But notice the specific phrasing he recommends. Tell me the story of how you met the host.
Tell me the story.
Yep.
That's interesting. It feels more inviting than just, "How do you know them?"
It is. It invites a narrative. It's open-ended, and it's almost always positive, usually involving friendship, college days, or family. It establishes a shared connection immediately. You both know the host, so you're on the same team.
Okay, so level 1 is direct. "Hi, I'm me." Permission granted. Now let's take it down a notch. Level 2, the mid-expectation environment.
This is where things get a little more nuanced. This is the cab ride, the elevator, the dog park, or maybe standing in line at a coffee shop.
The awkward silence zone.
It can be. The rule here is socializing is acceptable, but it is not required. You can stand in an elevator in silence, and that's totally fine. No one thinks you're weird, but you can talk.
So how do you test the waters without being intrusive?
Yeah.
If I use the level 1 approach, "Hi, I don't think we've met," to a guy in an elevator, he's going to hit the emergency stop button.
Yes, that's too aggressive. You'll scare people.
Yeah.
In level 2, you need a lower stakes opener. Dr. Smithyman suggests a specific two-step maneuver.
Okay, a maneuver. I'm ready.
Step 1 is the most basic standard. Hi, how's your day going?
The classic. But wait, everyone just says "good" and then looks away. That's the dead end. That's why I feel like small talk is useless.
If you stop there, yes. But that's just the ping. You're pinging the server to see if it's online. Most people will autopilot respond with, good, that's fine, that's what you expect.
So I shouldn't take that as a rejection.
Not at all. Then you hit them with step 2, the pivot. You ask, anything interesting going on today?
Anything interesting going on today? Ooh, that's a little different.
It is. It disrupts the autopilot just enough. It forces them to check their mental calendar. They can't just say good to that.
They have to actually think for a second.
They have to think. They might say, not really, just work. But often that slight variation prompts them to ask you, how about you?
The social boomerang, they throw it back.
And that is your opening. Now you can share a little detail about your day, and boom, you're in a conversation.
The source material had a great example of this with a cab driver, right?
Yes. The expert gets in the cab. He does the how's your day, anything interesting dance. They end up talking about the weather, where the driver is from. And here's the key, and this is what relieves so much pressure. They talked for a few minutes, and then they just stopped.
And that's okay. It's not a failure.
That's crucial. It was a pleasant exchange. It signaled, we're friendly humans. It didn't need to be a deep dive into philosophy. It didn't need to last the whole ride. It was a successful level 2 interaction.
I think that's a massive relief for a lot of listeners. Conversation doesn't have to go on forever to be a win. Sometimes it's just a nice 5-minute chat about rain.
Exactly. It's social grooming. It just creates a pleasant atmosphere. Now we reach level 3.
The final boss.
Low expectation environments, the danger zone, the grocery store, the gym, the seat next to you on the airplane where everyone has headphones in.
The do not disturb zone.
Right. The rule here is people are just existing. Interaction is not expected. In fact, people generally want to be left alone to do their human things. They are hunting for food, they are commuting, they are in their bubble.
So should we just not talk to people in grocery stores? Is it forbidden?
Not forbidden, but the strategy changes completely. You can't be direct. You can't really even ask, how are you? Because it demands a response from a stranger who owes you nothing.
So what do you do?
Instead, you use the throwing the ball technique.
Throwing the ball. Walk us through that.
You comment on something in the immediate environment, a shared reality, and you just toss it out there. You don't look them in the eye and demand an answer. You just see if they catch it.
Can you give me an example? Like the bookstore one.
Right. You see someone holding a book you've read. You say, kind of to the air, oh, I just finished that, it's great. Read anything else by them. You are commenting on the object, not the person.
Or the band t-shirt.
Yes.
I like that band. Are they good live?
Exactly. You are commenting on the environment. And here is the most important part of level 3, and honestly the hardest part for our egos.
What's that?
You have to be okay with them letting the ball drop.
The rejection.
It feels like rejection, but it's really just a mismatch of expectations. Dr. Smithyman shares a really vulnerable story about being in an airport line. These people next to him are talking loudly about a flight to Australia.
And he's Australian. He's done that flight. It's the perfect in.
Ideally, yes. So he chimes in, he throws the ball, he shares his experience about the flight being long, and what do?
They give him the cold shoulder. The
Right.
dreaded, oh.
Anyway, and they turn back to each other. Now, be honest. If that happened to you, how would you feel?
I would want to melt into the floor. I would replay that moment for 10 years. I would think, I'm unlovable, I am awkward, I should never speak again.
It's a spiral of shame. But the expert view is, read the room. They didn't throw the ball back. That's fine. Don't take it personally. Just move on.
It's not about me.
It's not about you. It's about their current desire for privacy. They were in a closed loop. You pinged them. They didn't respond. That is neutral data.
I like that. Neutral data.
Yeah.
It's not a judgment on my soul. It's just,
Yeah.
they didn't want to play catch right then.
Exactly. So to recap, read the level, high, be direct, mid, use the pivot, low, throw the ball, but be ready to walk away.
Okay, so we've broken the ice. We've established contact. The car is technically on,
Yeah.
but it's idling. How do we actually get moving? Because I feel like I'm great at the opener, but then I run out of gas immediately.
This brings us to section 2, getting the motor running. And I love the imagery Dr. Smithy Meidman uses here from his childhood in Australia.
A vintage car.
Yeah, his dad had this old vintage car that literally needed a hand crank to start, or sometimes they'd have to push it down a hill to get the engine to catch.
It's a perfect metaphor for conversation. Physics applies here.
It does. Think about friction. Static friction, the energy needed to get a stationary object moving, is always higher than kinetic friction, the energy needed to keep it moving.
So in a conversation, at the beginning, it feels heavy. It feels like work.
Correct. And you might have to be the one cranking the engine. You can't expect the other person to do the heavy lifting immediately, especially if they are shy or caught off guard. You have to generate the initial energy.
And the number one way we kill that momentum, the way we put the car back in park.
The short answer trap.
Oh, I am so guilty of this. Someone asks, how was your weekend? And I say, good, relaxed, end of story.
And silence follows. You have just put the brakes on. Research actually shows that short answers signal a desire to end the interaction.
What, really?
Yeah. When you give a one-word answer, you are subconsciously telling the other person, please stop talking to me.
Even if I don't mean to, I might just be being polite or trying not to bore them with details.
But concise is the enemy of connection here. To crank the engine, you need to provide what Smithyman calls hooks.
Hooks. Okay. Let's look at the coffee pot example from the source, because this really clarified it for me. It's about transforming a boring answer into, like, a buffet of options.
Exactly. So let's role play. Imagine I ask you, what did you do this weekend?
Okay. The boring answer, the bad answer is, I went to a coffee shop.
Dead end. I have nothing to work with there other than maybe asking which one or was it good? But I'm doing all the work. It's an interrogation.
Right. Now here is the hook version from the source material. Well, I was watching this dating show on Netflix, and they went to this specific coffee shop that does flavored coffees. It looks so cool, I had to look it up, and it turns out there's one nearby. So I went to try it, but I accidentally ordered 2 pots of coffee instead of 2 cups because I didn't read the menu right.
Now look at what you've just done. You haven't just answered the question. You've laid out 3 distinct paths for me to follow.
I counted them. Hook number 1, dating shows or Netflix.
I can say, oh, I love trashy TV. What show was it? Have you seen Love is Blind? That's an easy follow-up.
Hook number 2, coffee culture.
Oh, I'm a caffeine addict too. Was the flavor actually good or just a gimmick? I'm always looking for a good new spot.
And hook number 3, the funny failure, the anecdote.
You ordered 2 pots. Did you drink them both? Were you vibrating for 3 days? It's a self-deprecating story, which makes you relatable.
By giving those details, I've given you permission to choose the path that interests you. It's not on you to invent a topic.
Exactly. You are making it easy for me. You are cranking the engine so I can just jump in and steer. And that is the secret of the launch phase. You have to be a little bit self-indulgent with your backstory. You have to give more detail than seems strictly necessary.
It feels weird at first, right?
Yeah.
To talk that much about a coffee order, we're told not to ramble.
Right.
But in this context, rambling, or at least detailed sharing, is actually an act of generosity.
Generosity is the perfect word for it. You are taking the burden off the other person. You are saying, Here's a bunch of material. Pick whatever you like. No pressure.
Now, a quick safety check on the hooks themselves. Are there safe topics? Because I imagine I shouldn't launch into a rant about my political views or my recent colonoscopy as a hook.
Definitely not. That's cranking the engine and then driving it off a cliff. The source suggests sticking to safe topics during this warm-up phase. Places are great travel, local spots, neighborhoods, entertainment books, movies, podcasts, hobbies.
And there's a specific warning here regarding two very common topics: jobs and family.
Right, this is a big one. Avoid asking, what do you do? Or do you have kids? Right out of the gate.
Which is wild because what do you do is the standard American opener. It's the first thing we ask.
It is, but it's fraught with risk. For a lot of people, work is stressful. Maybe they just got fired. Maybe they hate their boss. Maybe they feel insecure about their title. Asking, how's work, can immediately inject cortisol into the interaction.
You're reminding them of their stress.
Exactly. And family can be even trickier. Divorces, estrangements, fertility issues. You just don't know what landmines are there.
Right. Keep it to the third places. Travel, hobbies, movies. Low stakes, high engagement.
Precisely. So we've opened based on the environment. We've cranked the engine by giving long, hook-filled answers. Now the conversation is moving, we're cruising, but how do we stay on the road? How do we keep this going so we don't hit that dreaded silence 5 minutes in?
This brings us to section 3, the infinite loop, or as I like to call it, the Ben method.
Ah, Ben, the myth, the legend.
Who is this Ben character? Tell us about him.
Ben is a friend of Dr. Smithy Man, who is described as the most socially successful person he knows. Everyone loves talking to Ben. He can talk to a CEO or a teenager or a grandmother, and they all walk away thinking, Ben is amazing.
So they tried to figure out his secret sauce.
They did. And when they asked Ben for his secret, he didn't give a technique. He gave a philosophy.
Okay, what was it?
He said, everyone is interesting. Everyone can teach you something.
It sounds like a motivational poster, but let's really unpack
Yeah.
that. Everyone is interesting. Really, everyone.
Think about the implications of that mindset. If you genuinely believe that the person you are talking to, no matter how boring they seem on the surface, knows something you don't, your curiosity becomes authentic. You stop faking it.
You're not just waiting for your turn to talk. You're mining for gold. You're looking for that nugget.
Exactly. Even if they're talking about, let's say, accounting software, most of us would tune out. Our eyes would glaze over. But if you adopt the Ben mindset, you're thinking, I wonder what the biggest crisis in the world of accounting software is right now. I bet there's drama there. I bet there's a scandal.
Tell me about the Excel spreadsheet scandal of 2024.
You laugh, but that is exactly it. Treat it like trivia. Treat the person like a documentary subject. What is it like to be them? What do they know that I don't?
So that's the philosophy. But what's the actual technique? How does Ben execute this?
The technique is the loop. It has 3 steps, and it creates a rhythm. Step 1, listen attentively. Don't just wait for them to finish. Actually hear what they're saying.
Step 1.
Cool.
Got it.
Step 2, ask 1 to 2 follow-up questions based on what they just said.
Okay, follow-ups are key. You can't just change the subject.
Right. You have to dig deeper on their topic. Then, step 3, share a related perspective or experience of your own.
So you connect it back to yourself.
You connect it, yes. And then you pause, and usually, because you've shared something related, they will ask you a follow-up. And the cycle restarts. Listen, follow-up, share. Listen, follow-up, share.
It creates a balance, a rhythm.
The 50-50 rule, a good conversation should be roughly equal participation. If you're just asking questions, and then what? And then what? It's an interrogation. The other person feels drained.
And if you're just talking, it's a monologue and they feel bored.
Exactly. The loop forces the balance. You ask, you show interest, then you contribute. You give them a break, then you throw the ball back to them.
But what if, okay, here's my nightmare scenario again.
I do the
Listen, I do the follow-up, I do the share, and they just stare at me.
Yeah.
They don't ask a question back. The loop breaks. The car stalls.
It happens. Some people are shy, or maybe they just don't have the social skills you're developing. In that case, Dr. Smithyman suggests you self-disclose again.
Just keep talking about myself. That feels counterintuitive. It feels kind of selfish.
Not in a narcissistic way, but you offer another detail. You offer another hook. You say, yeah, that experience actually reminded me of the time I went to. You prime the pump a little more. You don't retreat. You give them another chance to latch on.
So you're not interrogating them. You're just giving them more material to work with. You're adding more fuel to the engine because it sputtered a bit.
Exactly. And eventually, almost everyone will bite on something if you keep the environment safe and low pressure. If you keep proving I am safe to talk to, I'm interested in you, they will open up.
It really does seem to come back to that core idea of safety. If you make it easy for them, if you show you're interested, if you follow the spy code, people actually want to connect.
They do. We are social animals. We get a massive dopamine hit from connection. We just have these layers of fear and anxiety blocking it. Your job as a conversationalist is just to lower the drawbridge.
So let's bring this all together. We've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
If we're standing at that party, fighting the urge to hide in the corner, what's the game plan? Step by step.
First, assess the environment. Are you high, mid, or low expectation? If it's high, like a wedding, be direct. Hi, I don't think we've met. If it's mid, use the pivot. Anything interesting going on today? Disrupt the autopilot.
And if it's low, throw the ball but don't expect it back.
Exactly. Once you're in, you crank the engine. We don't give one-word answers. We give hooks. We talk about the coffee pot disaster. We give them roads to travel down.
And finally, use the bend method to stay in the infinite loop. Believe they are interesting.
Listen, follow up, share.
And the goal here isn't to be the most impressive person in the room.
No, absolutely not.
It's not to be the funniest.
No, the goal is to be a social leader.
A social leader. Define that one last time for us.
A social leader is just someone who makes it easy for others to engage. You are taking the burden of awkwardness onto your shoulders so they don't have to carry it. You are the one saying, I will be brave enough to say hello. I will be generous enough to share a story. I will be curious enough to listen.
That's what makes people love talking to you.
Not because you're witty, but because you make them feel safe and interesting.
That is such a relieving takeaway. It's not about performing, it's about facilitating. It's about being a good host.
100%.
Now, before we wrap up, the source mentioned a nuclear option. If all of this feels too hard, if the levels and the loops and the hooks are just too much for today, what do we do?
The nuclear option. If you simply cannot master small talk, Dr. Smith-Eamon says, just walk around with a dog.
Yes, the ultimate cheat code.
If you have a dog, the dog does the work. The dog is the ultimate hook. You don't have to say anything. People come to you. Oh, is he friendly? What breed is he? The small talk happens automatically.
So if you can't master the skills, adopt a puppy. Solid advice.
It works every time.
Okay, here is our challenge to you, the listener. We don't want you to just nod along with this. We want you to try it today.
Yes. Pick a low expectation environment. The next time you are in a line or at a shop, just throw the ball.
Comment on a piece of fruit. Wow, these apples look terrible today. Or comment on a magazine cover. Just toss it out there.
See if you can get the spy signal back. See if they nod and say, yeah, bad season for apples.
And if they don't, if they just look at you funny.
Then you practice letting it go. Oh, anyway. And you move on with your day, knowing you were brave enough to try. It's a win either way.
I love it. Go forth, be a spy, crank the engine, and maybe, just maybe, make a new friend.
Or at least have a pleasant chat about the weather.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive. We'll see you in the next conversation.
Take care. Okay, so picture this. You're standing in the lobby of your office building. It's maybe 8:55 a.m. on a Tuesday.
Okay.
You've got your coffee, you're checking your email on your phone, feeling pretty good about the day ahead. You press the button for the elevator.
Right. The classic start to the day.
Exactly. The arrow lights up, doors slide open. You step inside. And there, standing in the corner, holding a briefcase, is Dave.
Ah, Dave. Is this Dave from accounting?
It is always Dave from accounting. Or, it's that neighbor who lives 3 doors down, someone you recognize.
Right. Someone you know but you don't really know.
Yes. So you nod at him, he nods at you, the doors slide closed, and then just a vacuum.
The silence.
The deafening, soul-crushing silence. You're staring at the numbers changing on the display. 1, 2, 3, and the air just feels so thin.
I think we've all been there.
No, absolutely. You should say something. You're a human, he's a human, but your brain just freezes. You're terrified of saying something stupid or boring or just weird.
So you end up saying nothing.
Nothing. You just stare at your shoes until the doors finally open.
That is the universal social nightmare, isn't it? It's that moment where the social pressure is incredibly high, but the time is so short and you just cannot find the words.
It really is a nightmare. And it's not just elevators. It's waiting for the coffee machine or sitting in a waiting room. It's those awkward 5 minutes before a Zoom meeting really starts.
Right.
We want to connect or at least, stop the awkwardness, but we just don't know how to bridge that gap.
Well, you're definitely not alone in feeling that way.
Yes.
It's a skill. It's like cooking or, I don't know, coding. And today we are going to fix that We're doing a deep dive into a guide called Small Talk 101 from the team at POC English.
I am really excited about this one because the source material, it really breaks this down into almost a science. It feels manageable. But before we get into the how, let's talk about the what. What exactly is our mission today?
Our mission is to master the art of small talk. And we should probably be specific here. The source defines this as talking to people you don't know very well. But, and this is the key, with whom you share a common context.
Common context. Okay, let's unpack that phrase a little because we're not talking about like stopping random strangers on the street, are we?
No, absolutely not. And that's a crucial distinction. If you just stop a random person on the sidewalk, you're interrupting their day. But common context means you're both already in the same situation. You're sharing an experience.
So like the elevator.
The elevator's the classic one, but the source lists some other very specific scenarios, like attending a seminar.
Oh, a seminar. You know, for our listeners who might be learning English or aren't familiar with all the corporate terms, let's define that. What exactly is a seminar?
Good catch.
Oh.
A seminar is just a meeting, really, usually for education or training. So imagine a day-long class or a workshop you have to go to for your job.
And you're sitting next to people you don't know.
Exactly. You're all stuck in the same room learning the same thing.
And let's be honest, it's often a little bit boring.
Often, yes.
Hmm.
And that's actually perfect for small talk. Think of it like a mild hostage situation.
A hostage situation. That is a little dramatic.
I mean, a very mild one. You're all trapped there. You're all suffering through the same PowerPoint presentation. That shared experience, even if it's boredom, it creates a bond. That is your common context.
I see. So the shared experience is the spark.
Precisely.
Hmm.
The source also mentions classmates on the first day of school or new coworkers you've just met. In all of these cases, the goal isn't to exchange, high-level secrets or life stories.
No.
The goal is simply to establish a connection, to turn a stranger into an acquaintance.
But here is the big question, and I think a lot of people secretly wonder this. Why bother? Why can't we just, enjoy the silence? Why do we feel this need to fill the air with words about the weather?
That is a fair question. And the source actually gets right into the motivation behind it. We don't make small talk just to fill silence. We do it to socialize.
Okay.
We do it to get to know strangers better. But most importantly, the source says we do it to build connections and to develop relationships.
I like that. So it's not just noise, it's a bridge. It's the first step. You can't just walk up to someone and, ask them to be your best friend. You need a ramp.
Exactly. It's a vital social skill, and for anyone learning English, it's a vital language skill. But there is one golden rule that the source puts above everything else. If you take away just one thing from this deep dive, let it be this. Small talk must sound natural.
Natural. Okay, that sounds easy in theory, but it's actually really hard when you're nervous. When I'm nervous, I become a robot.
It is hard. But when the source says natural, it means it shouldn't feel forced. It shouldn't feel like you're reading from a script. Because if it doesn't come naturally, it falls into what the source calls the interview trap.
Oh, the interview trap. I have definitely been guilty of this.
Yeah.
This is when you just fire questions at the other person, right?
Precisely. You want to show you're interested, so you ask a question, they answer. Then you panic, so you ask another question, and another. It's just
You
relentless.
play this out so people can really hear what we mean. Try to engage me in small talk, but do it the wrong way. Use that interview style. I'll be Dave from accounting.
Okay, I'm ready. I'm nervous. Here we go. So,
Oh.
how is the weather?
It is nice.
Do you like it?
Yes.
Why not?
Duh.
Okay,
Well, because it's nice.
stop. That was painful. I felt like I was being interrogated by the police.
And I felt interrogated. It puts so much pressure on the other person. You asked a question, I gave a one-word answer. You asked another, I gave another one-word answer. It feels like a checklist.
Did I ask about the weather? Check. Did I ask if he likes it? Check. There's no flow, no give and take.
It's awful. It just creates a high cognitive load, as they say. I have to think of answers, and you have to think of new questions constantly.
So if the interview is the villain of our story, what's the hero? What's the right way to do it?
The source uses a brilliant metaphor for this.
It's ping pong.
I love this analogy. Table tennis.
Think about a game of ping pong. It's a reciprocal exchange. One person has to serve the ball. That means they toss it up and start the conversation. That's your opening question.
Okay, so I serve the ball, then what?
Then the other person has to return the ball. They have to reply. But, and this is the most important part, they don't just catch the ball and hold it. They have to hit it back to you.
And then you have a rally.
Then you rally. You have to keep it going. If the ball goes to the left, you move to the left. If it goes to the right, you move to the right.
So you're listening to what the other person says and actually reacting to it.
Exactly. You're adjusting your response based on what they give you. You're not just reading from a list of pre-written questions in your head. You're playing the game with them.
And there's a nuance here about how hard you hit the ball, right? In real ping pong, if I just smash the ball as hard as I can right at your face, the game is over pretty quick.
That's a great point. The interview is like smashing the ball. It's way too aggressive. You want to just lob the ball gently. You want to make it really easy for the other person to hit it back.
Okay, so to play this game effectively, we need a playing field. We need topics. The source identifies 3 major topics that work in almost any situation. These are your safety nets.
These are the big 3. And let's start with the first one. It's the classic. It's the cliche. It's the weather.
I knew it! The weather. Honestly, isn't talking about the weather a little bit boring? I always worry that if I mention the rain, I sound like the most uninteresting person in the entire world.
I think everyone feels that fear. But the source calls the weather the most common small talk topic across all languages for a very specific reason. It's not about being interesting. It's about psychological safety.
Psychological safety? What do you mean?
Think about it. The weather is the one thing everyone in that specific moment has in common. It doesn't matter if you're the CEO or the intern. It doesn't matter if you're from opposite sides of the world. If you are standing on the same street corner, you are experiencing the exact same rain or the exact same sunshine. It's a shared reality.
That's actually a really profound way to look at something so simple. We might disagree on politics or sports or, pizza toppings, but we can't disagree that it's raining.
Exactly. It is the safest possible ground to start building a connection.
So how do we serve the ping pong ball with the weather without sounding like a robot? We don't want to just say, the weather is currently experiencing precipitation.
Please do not say that. The source suggests some really simple, natural openers. You could say something like, beautiful day, isn't it?
Beautiful day, isn't it? I like that little tag question at the end, isn't it? It's like a handle on a teacup. It makes it really easy for the other person to pick it up.
Exactly. It invites agreement. Or you can make it a bit more personal. You could ask, do you like sunny days?
And what if they're grumpy? Or if it's just raining and miserable out?
Then you can share your own opinion to get the ball rolling. You might say, I don't really like cloudy days. How about you? See? You share a little bit of yourself, and then you toss the ball to them with, how about you?
That, how about you, is such a powerful little phrase. It is literally the paddle hitting the ball back. Now, what if the person isn't from here? I talk to people remotely a lot, or people who just flew in for a conference.
That is actually a great opportunity. The source suggests using what it calls the distance factor. You can ask, how is the weather in your town? Or how is the weather back in your country?
And that opens up a whole new conversation about geography and travel. Oh, it's snowing in my town? Really? Where are you from?
It does, and that leads us to a very advanced technique the source introduces. It's called the bridge.
The bridge. Okay, that sounds technical.
It's really simple, but it's so effective. It's just using one topic to move smoothly to another. You never want to just abruptly change the subject. It feels jarring.
Like, wow, it's raining. Do you like pizza?
Exactly. That is conversational whiplash. You need a bridge. So let's look at the example from the source. Imagine it is pouring rain outside.
Okay, it's pouring. We're both soaked.
Step 1 is the weather comment. It's really coming down. But you don't stop there.
Yeah.
You build a bridge to a personal topic. You ask, how did you get to work today?
I see. The rain directly affects the commute, so it makes perfect sense to ask about the commute.
Correct. Or you could ask, what do you usually do when it's raining? Now you're not just talking about water falling from the sky anymore. You're talking about their lifestyle, their habits, their preferences. You've crossed the bridge.
That is so smart. It feels seamless. You're not randomly changing the subject. You're just following the logical flow. The source gives a specific example, right? A conversation between someone from London and someone living in Milan.
Yes, let's break that one down. It's a perfect example of a ping pong rally. So one person starts by saying, what a beautiful day. The other person agrees, saying they love sunny days.
Standard start. Very safe.
Then comes the twist. The first person says, back in my town, it's always raining.
That's a hook. They've just dropped a little piece of personal information. My town.
Exactly. And the other person grabs that hook. They ask, oh, really? Where are you from? London. And the other person replies, I live in Milan.
And then, of course, the inevitable question, how is the weather there?
Usually sunny. That's why I love the sun. You see what happened there? They started with the weather right in front of them, but they used it to find out where the other person is from London versus Milan and to compare their experiences.
The Londoner loves the sun because they miss it. The Milan resident is used to it.
It creates this natural contrast. And now they know something real about each other. Oh, you're from London. That's a hook for future conversations.
Right. Next time they meet, they can ask about London. They've built a tiny connection.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've mastered the weather. We have crossed the bridge. What is the second big topic?
The second most popular topic, according to our source, is food and restaurants.
Of course.
Yeah.
Everyone eats. It's a biological universal.
Everyone eats. And usually, at work or at school, everyone eats around the same time. It provides a really natural context.
So this is a topic that's best used around, say, lunchtime.
Yes, definitely. Imagine you're sitting next to a colleague or a classmate. It's 12:04 CU PM. Stomachs are growling. It is the perfect time to serve the ball.
What's the serve here? What's the opening line?
A great opening question is something like, do you know any good restaurants around here?
I love that question because even if you don't want to eat with them right at that moment, you're asking for their advice. And people love being the expert.
They do. It makes them feel helpful. Another good one is, do you usually eat out or do you cook?
Okay, let's pause on the vocabulary there for a second. The expert in the source video highlights a couple of key phrases. The first one is eat out.
Yes. Eat out was what we call a phrasal verb. It just means going to a restaurant to eat as opposed to, cooking at home or eating a packed lunch.
And there was another one, something about grab a bite.
Right. Do you want to grab a bite? This is very informal, very friendly.
Why do we use the word grab? It sounds so fast.
Well, that's the point. Grab implies that it's going to be quick and low effort.
Mm-hmm.
If I ask you, would you care to dine with me? It sounds like a formal date or, I don't know, a marriage proposal. It's way too much pressure.
It does sound really intense.
But grab a bite implies, hey, this will be quick, it's super casual, no big deal. It lowers the stakes of the invitation.
That is a great tip. You probably wouldn't ask your boss to grab a bite if you're trying to be super formal. But for a colleague, it's perfect.
Exactly. Now, let's look at the scenario analysis for the food topic. This one is really interesting because it involves a little bit of a conflict, or maybe let's call it a negotiation.
A negotiation. Over lunch.
In a way, the source outlines a dialogue about a new Italian restaurant. Person A starts by asking about good places to eat. Person B mentions there's a new Italian place just around the corner.
And person A gets excited. Great, I love pizza. Would you like to join me? That is the invitation.
That's the invite. A strong serve. But person B returns the ball with a rejection. They say, no, I've actually packed my own lunch. My wife made me a sandwich.
Oh, that could be awkward. Does the conversation just die there? I feel like if someone said no to me, I would just kind of walk away in shame.
In a bad conversation, yes. You just say, oh, okay, and leave. But in a ping-pong conversation, no. Person A keeps the rally going. They pivot. They ask, oh, do you always bring your own food?
Ah, so they move from let's go eat to tell me about your habits. They stay curious.
And person B explains, usually, yes. I can't really afford to eat out all the time.
That's surprisingly honest for small talk. Money is usually kind of a taboo topic, isn't it?
It is. But in this context, saying eating out is expensive is incredibly relatable. It creates a bond. Person A agrees immediately. They say, yeah, I know. I'm just wasting my money and it's not very healthy to eat out all the time.
So they find common ground again. Eating out is expensive and unhealthy. They're bonding over the struggle.
But then, and this is the best part, they end on a high note. They admit, but let's face it, it's delicious.
It really is. And then they part ways. Enjoy your food.
You see how much happened there? Invitation, rejection, explanation, validation, agreement. All in about 4 lines of dialogue. That is the power of the ping-pong method. Even if the answer is no, the conversation can still be a yes in terms of making a connection.
I love that. It takes the fear out of rejection. Just because they can't have lunch doesn't mean they don't want to talk to you. Okay, so we have done weather. We have done food. What is topic number 3?
Topic number 3 is traveling.
Traveling. This feels a bit bigger than the weather or what's for lunch.
It is, and it's what the source considers the advanced bridge.
Why is it advanced?
Because you can use it to link back to all the other topics. It's the ultimate connector. But first, let's talk about when to use it. The source suggests it works best when you're near a public holiday.
That makes perfect sense. Christmas, summer break, a long weekend.
Right. The natural questions are, what's your plan for the holidays? Or even just any plans for the holidays?
And most people have some sort of plan, even if it's just staying home and sleeping.
Exactly. Now here's where the super bridge comes in. Let's say you're talking about the weather. It's raining. You can say, last year I went to London and it was rainy just like this. Boom. You've moved from weather to travel.
Or, if you're talking about food.
You could say, do you know a good pizzeria around here? No. Well, I had the most amazing pizza in Rome once. Boom. Food to travel.
I see. So it's a way to inject a little story into the conversation. I went to London or I went to Rome. It's so much more interesting than just commenting on the rain outside.
The source details a specific scenario involving Rome that shows exactly how this pivot works. Character A mentions they are planning to visit Italy with their wife.
Oh, Italy, the dream destination.
And character B connects immediately. They say, oh, wow, I went to Rome last year.
So they establish that shared experience right away. I'm going. Versus, I have been.
And look at the details they discuss. They don't just say it was nice. They talk about the food, the people, the beautiful city. The source even mentions a specific detail, a pizzeria called San Miguelis.
San Miguelis. Why is that specific detail important?
This is a great tip for you listening. When you tell a story in small talk, try to use specific details. Don't just say, I went to a restaurant. Say, I went to San Miguelis. Even if the other person doesn't know it, the specific name makes the story feel real. It gives it texture.
It gives the other person something to latch onto. They might ask, oh, where is that? Or what kind of pizza did you get there?
Exactly. Now, in this scenario, there's a fascinating pivot at the very end. Character B, the one who has already been to Rome, reveals they're actually going to London next.
Okay, so we've got Italy and London in one conversation. Very cosmopolitan.
And character A warns them, the weather is amazing this time of year.
Wait, is that sarcasm? London weather. Amazing.
It could be genuine if it's summer. Or it could be a little sarcastic joke about the rain. But either way, look at what just happened. We went from travel Rome and London back to the very first topic, weather.
We've come full circle. Travel, food, weather.
It really is a web, isn't it? You can pull on any string and it connects to all the others.
That is the beauty of it. You're never really stuck if you keep these three topics, weather, food, and travel in your back pocket.
Exactly.
Okay, so we have the theory, we have the topics, we have the ping pong metaphor, but practice makes perfect. The source material actually includes an interactive game.
Yes, the blue and red game.
I thought this was such a clever way to practice. The source video asks the viewer to play a role. The host says something like, okay, I'll say the blue lines, you say the red lines. It's a role play.
And the scenario they role play is a rainy morning. It puts everything we've just discussed into one short, perfect interaction. Let's break down the steps of this game because it's really a blueprint for a perfect small talk encounter.
Okay, step one, the serve.
The line is, beautiful day, isn't it?
But it's raining in the scenario.
Precisely. It's irony, it's sarcasm, it's humor. And humor is a fantastic icebreaker. It signals, hey, we're in this together and it kind of sucks, but we can laugh about it.
Okay, so the other person laughs and agrees. What's step two?
Step two is the reaction. The smell of rain is amazing. This is a technique called reframing. You shift the tone from complaining about the rain to appreciating something about it.
I love that smell. Petrichor, I think it's called. It's a nice positive spin.
And step three is the commute bridge. We talked about this earlier. The speaker says, I took the train, had my umbrella. How about you?
So they share their method train umbrella, and then they toss the ball right back. How about you?
And this invites the other person to share their horror story. Maybe they walked, maybe they forgot their umbrella and got soaked.
And that leads to step four, which is empathy.
Yes.
Yes.
The partner presumably says something bad happened, and the response is, oh, that must have been terrible.
This is so important. You're validating the other person's feelings. You're not trying to fix their problem. You're just acknowledging it.
And finally, step five, the weather forecast. Checking the forecast is the first thing I do every morning.
That's a personal habit. It moves the conversation from the immediate situation, this specific rain, to a more general lifestyle habit.
You see, in 5 sentences, we went from a sarcastic joke to appreciation, to commute logistics, to emotional empathy, and finally to a personal habit. That is a sophisticated conversation, but it uses very, very simple language.
It really flows, and when you break it down like that, you realize it's not magic, it's a structure. It is a ping pong match.
Precisely.
Okay, let's wrap this all up for the listener who is still standing in that imaginary elevator, looking at Dave from accounting, feeling their palms get sweaty. We've covered a lot of ground. What are the big takeaways here?
Okay, to recap, you've got the big 3 topics.
Right.
Number 1, weather. It's the universal opener. It's safe because it's a shared reality. And you can use it to bridge to location or personal habits.
Okay, number 2.
Number 2 is food, the great connector. Use it around lunchtime, ask for advice, negotiate that eat out versus packed lunch dynamic.
And number 3.
And number 3 is travel. That's your advanced bridge. Use it around holidays to link everything together with personal stories.
And the methodology is the most important part.
The ping pong method. Serve, return, rally. Don't interview. Don't smash the ball at their face. Listen, react, and keep the ball moving gently between you.
And remember the vocabulary we learned. Seminar for that work class. Grab a bite for a casual meal. Eat out for going to restaurants. And that word natural, meaning don't force it, be easygoing.
I want to leave you with one final thought.
Yeah.
We often stress about the content of small talk. We worry that talking about pizza is boring, or that talking about the rain is a cliche.
I definitely worry about that. I do not want to be the boring weather person.
But here's the secret. Small talk is not about the facts. It is not about the weather forecast or the ingredients in the pizza. It's a signal. When you engage in small talk, you are broadcasting a signal that says, I am friendly. I acknowledge your presence. I am open to connecting with you. That signal is what matters. The topic is just the vehicle for the signal.
That takes so much pressure off. I don't have to be interesting. I just have to be interested.
Exactly. You just have to pick up the paddle and be willing to hit the ball back.
So the next time you're in that elevator and the doors close and that silence starts to creep in.
Don't panic. Look at the weather. Ask about lunch. Or just ask if they have any plans for the holidays.
Serve the ball. You might be surprised by the rally that follows.
Indeed.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the art of small talk. Now go out there and maybe grab a bite with someone new.
See you next time.
Welcome back to the deep dive. I want to start today with a scenario that I think is going to feel painfully, maybe even a little embarrassingly familiar to you.
Oh boy.
Okay, picture this. It's January. Or maybe it's just a Tuesday night and you're feeling ambitious. You decide, this is it. This is the year I finally master a new skill. Let's say it's learning a language. You are motivated, you are caffeinated, you are ready. You open your laptop, you type in how to learn English, and then what?
Silence.
No, the opposite. Absolute crushing noise. You just get hit with a tsunami of stuff. Gamified owls, subscription models, AI tutors, YouTube gurus practically screaming at you. It's just complete paralysis.
Right. It's the classic paradox of choice. I think Barry Schwartz wrote about this. When the barrier to entry is 0, the difficulty of actually choosing something goes through the roof.
Yes. You end up doing nothing because you're terrified of picking the wrong method.
You spend 3 hours researching the best app and 0 minutes actually learning a verb.
Exactly. So today we are cutting through that noise. We're looking at a platform that kept popping up in our research as a kind of gold standard, but I think a lot of people overlook it because it isn't flashy, it doesn't have a mascot, dancing on your screen.
Right.
We are doing a deep dive into the ecosystem of BBC Learning English.
And I am really glad you used that word ecosystem, because when we sat down and really tore apart the source material for this, the site's architecture, the content, all of it, we realized this isn't just a website with a vocabulary list.
Yeah.
It's a whole curated world.
It's a world with some serious baggage, too. Or maybe baggage is the wrong word. Let's call it heritage. I was just looking at the header on the homepage, and there's this tiny tagline that totally reframed how I saw the entire site. It says, "Inspiring language learning since 1943.
1943.
I mean, just pause on that for a second. That is the middle of World War II.
And that's a crucial piece of context. This didn't start as a tech startup in some Silicon Valley garage trying to, capture market share. This started as radio broadcasts. It was a way for the UK to maintain a connection with the rest of the world during a global crisis.
So it was about survival and connection, not just where is the library.
Exactly. But does that legacy actually hold up? Because let's be honest, looking at a website in 2026, legacy can sometimes just mean
Old, clunky.
But out of touch, yeah. But surprisingly, it's the opposite here. That broadcaster DNA is what makes it so unique. I mean, think about it. Most apps today are built by software engineers. They treat language like code.
If you input X grammar rule, you output Y sentence.
Right. The BBC is built by journalists. They treat language like news, as a vehicle for culture and for reality.
That is a fascinating distinction. So, our mission today is to unpack how that actually plays out on the screen. We're not just going to list the features, that'd be boring. We're going to look at how they structure knowledge. And this really jarring, fascinating mix of content where you'll have casual chats about cocktails sitting right next to headlines about.
Death and protests.
Uh,
It's a juxtaposition you absolutely will not find on Duolingo, that's for sure.
Not at all. And we have to look at the global reach because when we analyzed the specific language options in the navigation, it told a story about geopolitics that I was not expecting.
It's basically a map of where the BBC thinks English is needed most right now.
Okay, let's get into the architecture first. If you land on the home page, you've got this primary navigation bar. And to me, this is like the blueprint of their whole philosophy. You have the classics, right? Pronunciation, vocabulary, grammar.
The mechanics,
Uh,
the nuts and bolts of the machine.
Right. But then, sitting at the exact same level of importance, right next to them, you have things like courses, skills, and work English.
And that distinction is vital. Think about how most of us learn a language in school. You learn the mechanics first. You spend 3 years just conjugating verbs and memorizing lists of vegetables before you ever have a real conversation.
Ugh, don't remind me. 3 years of high school French, and I still panic if I have to order a coffee.
Exactly. And that's the mechanics first failure. By putting work English right alongside grammar, the BBC is signaling this massive shift. They're saying that functional application isn't something you do after you learn the language. It's how you learn it.
Work English really stood out to me. Sounds a bit dry, like it's just going to be about spreadsheets.
But it's not.
No. When you click into it, it's social survival.
It's all about context. I mean, the cat is on the table is a grammatically correct sentence, but it is useless in a boardroom. Work English teaches you the sociolinguistic skills, how to interrupt someone politely, how to disagree without being rude.
It's about navigating people, not just sentences.
Precisely. It's the difference between being fluent and being capable.
I like that. So speaking of capability, what did you make of the Choose Your Level section?
Oh, I loved this.
It's just 3 buttons. Easy, medium, hard.
No placement test.
No placement test. No sign up and give us your email to find out your score. Just this respectful assumption that I know how much English I know.
It's so refreshing. It just respects the learner's agency. But there's another layer to the audience segmentation I found even more interesting. Did you catch the links in the footer and the extended menus?
You mean for teachers?
Yes, for teachers. It's not hidden away either. It gets its own dedicated ecosystem.
And that's a huge differentiator. Most language apps are B2C, business to consumer.
Right. They want you to subscribe. They want your monthly fee. The BBC, by supporting teachers, is acting more like an infrastructure provider.
It's a force multiplier.
Exactly. If you teach one student, you have one person. If you give lesson plans of audio clips to a teacher in, say, a rural school in a developing nation, you're helping hundreds. It just reinforces that institution vibe. They aren't just a service. They're acting like a public utility.
A public utility for English. I like that. But okay, let's pivot. We have to talk about the content itself. Because if the architecture is the skeleton, the content is the meat. And this meat has a very distinct flavor.
That's a very polite way of saying it's kind of all over the place.
It is wild. So I'm scrolling the latest content module on the homepage. It feels very magazine style, very approachable. And I see a module titled An Easy Conversation About Drinks.
Okay. Low stakes, social, phatic.
Phatic.
Phatic communication. It's language used just for social bonding, not for conveying information. Like talking about the weather. It's just about saying, hey, I'm here, you're here, we're friendly.
Got it. So easy conversation about drinks, very phatic. Then I see learn expressions with big and what English phrases really mean.
Can we pause on that last one? What English phrases really mean? That is such a subtle but important lesson.
How so?
Because English, especially British English, is a high context language. We say things we don't mean all the time. If a British person says, that's an interesting idea, they almost always mean that is a terrible idea and please stop talking.
Huh. Right. Or I'll bear that in mind means I am deleting this email immediately.
Exactly. Teaching that subtext is advanced. It's cultural literacy, not just dictionary definitions.
So you've got the drinks, you've got the cultural code, it's all fun and light. And then you scroll down maybe 3 inches where you look at the sidebar and you see a headline.
Yeah.
And it is not "The sun is shining."
No.
The headline I saw was Iran protesters killed.
Yeah. That stops you in your
It
tracks.
really does. You go from an easy conversation about drinks to Iran protesters killed. And this isn't a mistake, it's a feature. It's their news integration.
It's a deliberate pedagogical choice. This is where the BBC, part of BBC Learning English, really flexes its muscles. Yeah. Think about a standard textbook. Everything is sanitized. The biggest problem in a textbook is usually that someone lost their umbrella.
It's safe English.
It's sterile. But the BBC's philosophy seems to be that you can't be truly fluent in English if you can't navigate the reality of the English-speaking world. And that reality includes conflict, politics, and tragedy.
But isn't that risky? I mean, usually when you're learning something new, you want a low-stress environment. Doesn't introducing heavy political news raise the, what do educators call it, the affective filter?
That is a great counterargument. The affective filter hypothesis, it suggests that if you're stressed or anxious, your brain kind of shuts down and you can't learn.
Right.
But there's a flip side, necessity and relevance. If I teach you the word for umbrella, you might remember it. If I teach you the words to understand a protest that affects your country, you will remember it.
Because it matters.
Because it has emotional urgency. They're using these hard news stories as high engagement learning vehicles.
And looking at the specific section, Learn English from News Headlines, it seems like they're doing something else too. They're not just teaching the vocabulary of war, they're teaching the tone of reporting.
Impartiality.
Right. The headline, Iran protesters killed, is tragic, but it's grammatically objective. Passive voice. It's factual. It's not screaming at you.
And for a language learner, learning how to describe those kinds of events objectively is a massive step. It bridges the gap between, street English and professional English.
Right.
It treats the learner like an adult.
An adult who's engaged with the world, not just a student in a classroom.
Exactly. It says, you're a global citizen. Here is the language of the globe.
So we've got this mix of cocktails and conflict. But there's also a whole section for everything in between, the topics menu. I actually wrote down the list because it felt like a very specific snapshot of human existence.
Okay, let's hear it.
We've got food, feelings and emotions, the environment, friends and family, travel and transport, and fashion and style.
It's almost like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, isn't it?
I hadn't thought of it that way, but now that you say it.
Well, walk through it. You start with food, basic physiological survival. You move to friends and family, that's love and belonging. Feelings and emotions, that's internal psychology. Then you expand outward to the environment, global awareness. And finally, fashion, self-actualization, self-expression.
That is surprisingly deep for a drop-down menu.
Design is rarely accidental. The choice of topics tells you what they value. They value a learner who can feed themselves, yes, but also one who can express how they feel and care about the planet.
I was struck by the environment being a top-level topic. 10 years ago, that probably wouldn't have been there.
Definitely not. That's the platform adapting to the modern lexicon. I mean, climate change, carbon footprint, sustainability, these are essential vocabulary words now.
And they keep the format engaging, too. It's not just reading text. I saw quizzes, test your level, downloads. It feels active.
It's interactive. And to go back to that 1943 date, you'd think a legacy brand like this would be stuck in the past. But did you look at the footer under social?
Ah, I missed that. What's there?
It isn't just Facebook. They list TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram.
Wait, the BBC is on TikTok.
They are.
That feels, I don't know, a little bit like a dad trying to be cool at a disco. Does it actually work?
It's incredibly smart, actually. Think about the attention span of the modern learner. Microlearning is huge. If you can teach an idiom or a pronunciation tip in a 15-second vertical video, you're reaching people where they already are.
That's true. I spend way more time doom scrolling TikTok than I do browsing educational websites.
Exactly. It's an admission that the whole destination website model is dying. You have to go to the user. From radio waves in the 1940s to TikToks in the 2020s.
The medium changes, but the mission is the same. Which brings me to the final thing that really stood out. And this was a detail in the header that I almost glossed over, but when I looked closer, it kind of blew my mind.
The language options.
The language options. Usually when you go to a global website, you click Change Language, and you expect the standard, Western canon, French, Spanish, German.
The languages of commerce and tourism. The usual suspects.
Right. But I'm looking at this list on the BBC Learning English homepage, and those aren't there.
No, they are not.
Here's the actual list I found. Tell me what pattern you see here. Farsi, Chinese, Thai, Burmese, Korean, Amharic, Oromo, Tigrinya.
It's a very specific and very telling list.
I had to look a couple of those up. Amharic, Oromo, and Tigrinya, those are all languages from the Horn of Africa.
Correct. Ethiopia, Eritrea.
And then you've got Burmese
Okay.
and Farsi. What is going on here? Why these specific languages and not, say, Spanish?
So this is where we have to put on our geopolitical hats. This is not a list based on most speakers globally. If it were, Spanish and Hindi would be at the top.
So what is it based on?
It's based on access and influence. This is soft power in action.
Break that down for me. Soft power.
Soft power is the ability to co-opt rather than coerce. It's influencing the world through culture and values, not military force. By providing free, high-quality English education to the Horn of Africa or to Myanmar, that's Burmese, or Iran, that's Farsi, the BBC is establishing a direct line of communication with those populations.
Populations that might not have easy access to other resources.
Exactly. In many of these regions, internet access might be restricted or local media might be heavily censored. The BBC is acting as a bridge.
So the absence of French and Spanish is because those speakers are assumed to be fine. They have other ways to learn?
Likely, yes. A French speaker probably has plenty of ways to learn English. They don't need the BBC in the same way. But a speaker of Tigrinya in a conflict zone, the BBC might be their only link.
Wow. It transforms the platform from a generic website into a targeted, almost humanitarian tool.
Humanitarian and strategic, let's be honest. It benefits the UK to have people in strategically important regions speaking English and consuming British media.
It's a service, but it's not purely altruistic.
Few things in international relations are.
Yeah.
But the result is a person in Ethiopia has a direct line to this content.
Which creates this incredibly tight loop. We talked about the headline, Iran protesters killed earlier. Now, combine that with the fact that Farsi is one of the main navigation languages.
Loop is closed. You are an Iranian speaker. You come to the site via the Farsi portal, and you see fair, impartial reporting about your own country and the language you're trying to learn. That is incredibly powerful.
It's validation. It says, we see you.
And we want you to be part of this conversation.
So when we pull all this together, the structure, the content, the accessibility, what are we actually looking at?
I think the so what here is that BBC Learning English isn't really an app in the way we think of Duolingo or Babbel. Those are products. This is an institution.
A media organization acting as a teacher.
Yes. It treats English not as a subject to be studied in a vacuum, but as a tool for survival and navigation. Whether that's social navigation at a party or navigating a global crisis, the platform is telling you, you need English to understand the world, and here is the world.
It's immersion, but not just in the language. It's immersion in the context of the language.
Exactly. A textbook is static. This is dynamic. It exists in the real world right now.
It makes me think about my own learning. I always get stuck on the grammar drills, but if I thought about it more like, I need to learn this so I can understand what's happening in the news, maybe it would stick better.
Context is the ultimate memory aid. If you care about the news story, you'll learn the vocabulary. They're leveraging desire and necessity.
And they've been doing it since 1943. They've probably got it figured out by now.
You would hope so.
It's just amazing to see how they've adapted. But the core mission seems exactly the same.
The medium changes, the message remains.
So here's the question I want to leave everyone with today. We've talked about this mix of content, the light and the dark, the cocktails and the conflict.
Yeah.
If you are an educator or even just someone trying to learn, does this change how you view the responsibility of teaching a language? Is learning a language just about words and syntax? Or is it inherently an act of engaging with the world's most difficult problems?
That is the question. Can you truly speak a language if you can't speak about the things that matter most?
Because looking at this homepage, the BBC seems to think you can't have one without the other. Something to chew on. Thanks for diving in with us.
A pleasure.
We'll see you on the next deep dive.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're undertaking a mission that is just so vital for so many global professionals. We're talking about moving beyond just basic English fluency to mastering, articulation and clarity, especially those really high-stakes settings.
Right. We're diving into what it takes to succeed in those competitive environments.
Exactly. Whether you're in a boardroom trying to close a major deal, or you're giving a huge presentation, or even just in a one-on-one negotiation.
Yeah, it's really about transforming how your communication is perceived. Just being able to speak English, well, it's not always enough anymore.
Yeah.
We need to get to a level where the listener can focus 100% on the brilliance of your content, not the mechanics of how you're delivering it.
And for millions of professionals who are foreign-born, this is the whole game, isn't it?
It is. It's about advancing careers, making sure their ideas actually get traction, and, advocating for their causes without a linguistic barrier holding them back.
And that linguistic barrier, it often comes in the form of some really frustrating feedback.
Oh, yeah.
Our source material for today, which is this fantastic training guide, it points out those phrases that can just stop you in your tracks.
Yeah.
Things like, I don't understand what you are saying.
Or the really discouraging one, you have a heavy accent. That kind of feedback just hits so hard.
Yes, it does.
Because it suggests a failure in your delivery, even when the message itself is, completely solid.
So our deep dive today is kind of a practical counteroffensive to that.
It is. We're taking those painful hurdles and distilling them into 7 really concrete, transformative steps. And the mission here, it isn't to erase your accent.
Right, an accent is part of your identity.
Exactly. The mission is to refine your delivery so that the message you've worked so hard on is received powerfully, efficiently, and clearly.
Absolutely. So we've distilled this guide into what feels like a clear 3-part path. First, we'll talk about establishing an objective baseline through feedback. Second, mastering the actual mechanics of your daily speech.
Right.
And third, how to sustain that improvement through your mindset and strategic practice. So let's just jump in and start with what the experts say is the most fundamental barrier here.
Well, that core problem is really rooted in something we call cognitive load.
Cognitive load. Okay, what is that?
So imagine a non-native speaker is delivering a critical message. Maybe it's complex, high-level information like quarterly earnings or a new legal strategy.
Right.
High stakes, very high stakes. If the listener has to spend too much mental energy just trying to decipher the sounds, or maybe an unfamiliar intonation, the cognitive load is simply too high.
And what's the professional cost of that? It's not just that they might miss a word or two.
No, the cost is immense. It translates directly to a loss of perceived authority.
Wow.
If I, as the listener, have to fight to understand your words, 2 things happen. 1, I get tired quickly. And 2, subconsciously, I start to assign less value or credibility to your message because the delivery feels challenging.
So you risk losing influence, slowing down a deal, or even having your ideas misattributed just because of friction in the communication.
That's it, exactly. And the goal of this deep dive is to eliminate that friction.
Okay, so to eliminate that friction, we have to first understand exactly where it is. We need to move from, subjective frustration to objective data.
Mm-hmm.
And this brings us to tip number 1, which is, I think, maybe the hardest one psychologically, the power of recording yourself. Radical self-assessment.
It is the necessary first step, and it really is a game changer because you're finally introducing objectivity. The action itself is simple. Just record your next big presentation, a tough meeting, even a long client call.
And then the hard part.
And then the hard part, you have to force yourself to actively listen back to it, maybe even a few times.
Why is that listening back so critical? Is it because in the moment our brain is sort of acting as a rapid editor?
That's it, exactly. When you're speaking in real time, your brain is juggling so much idea generation, finding the right words, managing the flow. It subconsciously smooths over your own speaking flaws.
Is what you meant to say.
Precisely. The recording, though, is completely unbiased. The source emphasizes that when you record yourself, you will, and I'm quoting here, pick up on things that you might not have noticed before. That recording is your first objective diagnostic tool.
So that's the aha moment, where you finally hear a pattern you never noticed while you were speaking. But just listening back once isn't enough if you're really aiming for mastery, right? What's the next level?
The key is granularity.
Yeah.
You have to move beyond just thinking, oh, I sound accented. You need to identify specific phonetic patterns.
Like what?
Well, you could try transcribing the recording. Where did you misplace the stress on a word? Did you drop the final consonant on plurals, making clients sound like client?
Oh, that's a big one.
It is. Or did you use the rising inflection of a question when you actually intended to make a firm statement? Those are the kinds of technical errors that a recording will reveal in a way that, your own brain just won't.
Okay, so that leads us directly to the next logical step, which is getting external validation.
Right.
Building that necessary feedback loop. Once you've done your self-diagnosis, you need another set of eyes and ears. And that's why we're jumping immediately to tip number 3, leveraging a speaking partner.
And we are deliberately sequencing these together because they are two halves of one essential whole.
Right.
The self-recording gives you the diagnosis, but the partner provides the necessary surgical correction. They close that perception gap between how you think you sound and how you actually sound to a native listener.
Because you just can't hear everything yourself.
You can't, especially not subtle things like intonation or slight vowel shifts. A native speaker's ear is just tuned differently.
So who should this partner be? Should it be like a family member, or do you need someone professional?
Well, ideally, for professional improvement, it should be someone who is both a native English speaker and understands the professional context of your communication.
Like a trusted colleague or mentor?
Perfect. Because the source defines the partner's role as active coaching, not just passive listening. They have to be willing to, and again I'm quoting, call you out when you say a word wrong, aren't pronouncing things correctly, or using the wrong grammar.
That requires a huge mindset shift, doesn't it? As the speaker, you have to actively invite that correction. You have to make yourself vulnerable.
It absolutely does. You have to establish what we call a safe space for this kind of surgical feedback. And you have to approach every single interaction with this partner, whether it's a formal rehearsal or just a casual chat, as a learning opportunity. The source encourages you to ask for feedback anytime you are speaking.
And that transforms it from just a conversation into an active training session.
Exactly. It dramatically accelerates your improvement because that partner provides the real-time, instantaneous feedback that a recording just can't.
Can we illustrate that difference? So if I listen to a recording, that's tip 1, I might notice I said schedule instead of schedule, and I'll write it down.
Okay.
But if I have a partner, tip 3, the moment I say schedule in the conversation.
They stalk you right then and there. And they have you repeat it 3 times correctly.
And that immediate correction is the real power.
It's everything. It prevents the error from being repeated, which is critical because every time you reinforce a mistake, you're strengthening the wrong muscle memory. The partner is like a human filter, ensuring only the correct forms get into your long-term speaking bank.
So use tip 1 to find the patterns, and tip 3 to surgically fix them in the moment.
That's the loop.
Okay, so we've established this objective feedback loop, self-assessment, and peer correction. But sometimes just identifying the problem isn't enough. You need the technical roadmap for the solution. And this is where we transition to tip number 2. Formalizing the training with specialized accent reduction and pronunciation courses.
Right. This is the professional intervention you need when self-study and, just partner feedback kind of hits a wall. While that practice is vital, structured training provides the technical, phonetic knowledge that you often miss on your own.
We're talking about the underlying mechanics of speech production that are different in every language.
Exactly. So if your goal is business performance, why invest in a formal course versus just more conversation practice? What do these courses actually teach that's so transformative?
That's the question.
Well, they teach the physiology of English sound production. They focus intensely on things like mouth shape, tongue position, breath control, and intonation patterns that are unique to English.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Many languages rely heavily on lip movement, while English uses the tongue much further back in the throat for certain sounds. A course can systematically teach you exactly where to place your tongue for the English L sound versus the R sound.
Or how to shape your lips for a specific vowel, like the oo in food versus the unicut.
Precisely. And that's fascinating because without that specific technical knowledge, you might be practicing the same incorrect sound for years, reinforcing the wrong habit without ever realizing why it's wrong.
Yeah, you're just spinning your wheels.
These courses are designed for acceleration. The source outlines the immediate benefits, reducing the accent, building confidence, and critically, making sure you get your complex point across clearly. And that clarity then translates directly into professional authority.
Let's talk about that link the source makes. When you sound clear and articulate, others will listen. This is about more than just comprehension, isn't it? It's about commanding respect in a room.
It is 100% about commanding attention. When the listener doesn't have to struggle to decode your speech, their entire mental focus shifts from how you're saying it to what you're saying.
Effortless communication is persuasive.
Highly persuasive. If a speaker is articulate, meaning they use distinct sounds, clear rhythm, proper pacing, the message just lands with authority. It makes the speaker sound competent, prepared, and in control of their material.
So the goal isn't just basic comprehension. It's about fluency in a social and rhetorical sense. It's about making it effortless for the listener so they can absorb complex ideas without any friction.
Absolutely. When we reduce that cognitive friction for our audience, their trust in our expertise actually increases. That's a measurable professional benefit in the business world.
And the source confirms this, saying the more you speak like a native speaker, the easier it is for the locals to understand you.
Right. And these courses just accelerate your ability to pick up those specific phonetic and rhythmic patterns that make communication feel effortless for an English-speaking listener.
Okay, we've established the need for feedback and formal training. Now let's pivot to the daily mechanics, the strategies you can use right now in every conversation. Starting with tip number 4, controlling your pace, the art of speaking slower.
This is a deceptively simple tip. Many non-native speakers, especially when they're nervous or excited, tend to speak faster. They might be translating in their head or just trying to get the whole idea out before they lose it.
But the source highlights a huge risk there. Speaking too fast slurs your words together.
Exactly. And if you combine that slurring, where sounds just bleed into each other with an existing phonetic accent.
The message becomes hard to digest. It's like trying to listen to something through a thick filter. The listener has to consciously strain just to pull the individual words
Yeah,
apart.
yeah, the listener is fighting the delivery itself. So, to combat that tendency to rush, the source offers a solution trio that you really have to use together. Slow down, pause, and enunciate your words.
Let's start with enunciation. For anyone who doesn't know, to enunciate means to pronounce words clearly and distinctly, giving every sound and syllable its proper weight. Why does speaking slower help with that?
When we speak quickly, we naturally reduce or even omit sounds, especially unstressed vowels or final consonants. Think about the word government.
Hmm.
A fast speaker might reduce it to 2 or 3 syllables, like government. A slow, enunciated speaker will be much closer to the full 4 syllables, making sure all the consonant sounds are crisp.
So consciously slowing down gives your mouth and tongue the time to physically get to the right position for every sound.
And it cleans up the audible signal dramatically.
Okay, and then there's the second part of that trio,
Mm-hmm.
pausing. We often think of silence as wasted time in a presentation, but it's vital, isn't it?
Pausing is one of those powerful rhetorical tools in any language. It's not dead air, it's a vital cue.
What does it signal to the listener?
A pause signals. That point is finished. Now absorb it. Here comes the next concept. In a high-stakes scenario, a well-placed pause conveys confidence and authority. It shows you're in control of the information, not just rushing through it.
And it respects the listener's mental effort.
Yes, it gives them time to process the complex ideas you just delivered. Rushing your words actually minimizes the importance of your ideas.
That reframes pausing from a mechanical thing to a rhetorical strategy. Okay, so if tip 4 deals with the overall flow and rhythm, tip 5 dives down to the microscopic level. Isolated practice, conquering single problematic sounds.
This is pure mechanical training. It requires identifying a problem and then surgical repetition. The first step is just identification. You have to find the single sound that is the hardest for you to say, and this is highly specific to your native language.
Our source material gives 5 common challenging sounds for non-native speakers: V, R, W, TH, or P. These often represent unique phonetic requirements in English that just don't exist in other languages.
Let's take the bass sound. It's produced by putting the tip of your tongue just between your teeth and blowing air across it. It's a fricative sound.
And it's absent in so many languages.
Right, which leads speakers to substitute it with a T or a D or an S. So imagine a professional talking about a sync fund versus a think fund.
Or talking about free things versus three things. That one substitution can completely derail the meaning in a business context.
Absolutely, or the V and W distinction. In some languages, they're pretty much interchangeable, but in English, the difference between a vest and the West is enormous.
Especially if you're talking about corporate investments or geography. Conflating those sounds leads to real confusion.
This is exactly why the technical mastery matters. So once you've identified the sound, let's use the V sound for an example. What's the drill technique?
A technique is rigorous, targeted repetition. You practice just saying the isolated sound, V, 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 over and over again, getting your lips and mouth comfortable with the physical movement.
And then
you pick specific words that contain that sound, victory, investment, and practice them. First, slowly, then you integrate them into phrases.
And that transition from the isolated sound to words is key. You can also use what are called minimal pairs words that differ by only one sound, like wet versus vet.
Right. Drilling those minimal pairs trains your ear and your mouth to both recognize and produce that precise difference.
And the repetition should be high frequency. It's almost like physical therapy for your articulators, your mouth, tongue, and lips.
And the outcome here is all about eliminating that distraction we talked about earlier. The goal is to get your mouth comfortable with saying them properly, so those sounds are no longer distracting to the listener.
Because when you constantly stumble over a sound, or when it's noticeably distorted, it pulls the listener out of the flow. It forces them to pause their own comprehension just to decode one word.
So isolating that sound, conquering it, and automating it moves the technical side of speaking into what? Unconscious competence.
That's the goal. You're no longer thinking about where to put your tongue. You're thinking about your argument.
Okay, we've covered establishing the baseline feedback and conquering the physical mechanics. Now let's focus on the strategies for sustaining this momentum and managing the friction that always comes with language learning. We already introduced tip number 3, the speaking partner, but I want to circle back and really emphasize the culture of immediate correction this requires.
Right. The speaking partner is not a cheerleader. They are a necessary coach. And we need to underscore the importance of their duties. The immediacy of correction is everything.
The source says they must call you out when you use the wrong word, mispronounce something, or use incorrect grammar.
It's intense, active coaching, and it requires both people to be fully committed to that process.
It also demands a lot of resilience from the speaker. I mean, it's hard to have someone constantly correct you, especially if you're a senior professional who's used to being the expert in the room.
That's why that safe space culture is paramount. The speaker has to view correction not as a judgment on their intelligence, but as a technical gift that helps them achieve mastery.
So by explicitly asking for feedback anytime you speak, you're getting dozens of tiny real-time adjustments.
And those adjustments reinforce the correct habits before the wrong ones become deeply ingrained. This constant feedback loop is the fuel for exponential growth.
That's the long-term, high-intensity solution. But now let's look at tip number 6, which feels like a crucial short-term tactic for managing confidence: strategic vocabulary substitution. In other words, finding synonyms.
This is pure pragmatic confidence management. This tactic acknowledges that, based on your native language, some English words are just inherently difficult.
They might cause you to hesitate or stumble or use a wrong pronunciation, and it can derail your whole delivery.
Right, so the simple tactical advice is, in those high-stakes moments, just avoid them entirely.
If a word is a temporary linguistic obstacle, you bypass it by finding synonyms, words that are similar in meaning, and using those instead.
Exactly.
But wait a second. Aren't we contradicting tips 5 and 7 here? We just told the listener to practice their hardest words, and now we're telling them to avoid them. Isn't that contradictory?
That is an excellent point, and it highlights the strategic difference between training and performance.
Yeah.
Tip 6 is a performance strategy. If you're about to give a pitch to a major investor, your immediate goal is smooth delivery, high confidence, and clear communication. So if you know that the word specificity causes you to visibly tense up and fumble the sound, you swap it out. You say detail or precision instead. You maintain your momentum, you maintain your confidence, and you deliver the message flawlessly.
Ah, I see. So avoidance is a short-term tactic to ensure success under pressure, while the isolated practice from tip 5 is the long-term work you do in private.
They coexist.
They absolutely coexist.
Yeah, right.
You work on specificity in your private drill sessions, but during the actual pitch, you strategically substitute it. It allows you to separate your training environment from your professional one, which reduces anxiety and keeps fluency as the top priority.
It's pragmatic language mastery. That distinction makes perfect sense. Okay, let's wrap up these 7 strategies with the final one, tip number 7, which is really the master skill and the key mindset shift that holds all the others together: consistency and confidence.
This is the golden rule. It's non-negotiable. The source's directive is absolute. Practice speaking English every day, as often as possible, to as many people as possible. The mantra "practice makes perfect" might sound cliché, but for language acquisition, it's physiological truth, isn't it?
It is. And the source points out 2 interwoven gains from this relentless consistency: pronunciation and vocabulary.
How so?
Well, by practicing daily, you're constantly reinforcing the correct muscle memory for sounds. That's tip 5, making them automatic. And at the same time, you're cementing vocabulary into your active memory.
We all have passive vocabulary words we recognize, and active vocabulary words we actually use easily.
Right. And consistent high-frequency practice practice moves that difficult technical vocabulary from passive into active. That allows for faster, more articulate retrieval during a spontaneous conversation.
And to really bring this home, the source provides a powerful analogy comparing speaking to learning a musical instrument or a new sport.
And that analogy is spot on because it reframes speaking as a physical, technical, and athletic skill. You don't become a concert pianist by reading music theory once a week.
You need hours of physical practice.
And you don't get good at a sport by just showing up now and then. Speaking requires physical repetition to train the articulators. It reinforces the need for consistency, daily use, high frequency, not just sporadic study sessions, to achieve genuine professional clarity.
You need to put in the reps.
You have to put in the reps.
Okay, that was an exhaustive tour of 7 highly targeted, actionable strategies. Now, let's broaden the view a bit, as we always do, and look at the philosophy behind this guide and how it fits into the world of career-focused language training.
The insights we've been discussing, they come from the philosophy of an organization called Language for Professionals. And understanding their mission really sheds light on why these tips are so focused on clarity and confidence over just, mere fluency.
They're explicitly described as a business-oriented, customized language training solution.
And that orientation is crucial. This is not general ESL aimed at tourists or university students.
Yeah.
This training is laser-focused on overcoming communication barriers that cost businesses time, money, and influence. It means the training is tailored to high-stakes workplace needs, presentation skills, negotiation strategies, and technical vocabulary for demanding industries.
They mention offering high-quality on-site language classes, which I assume means they adapt their curriculum to a specific client.
Exactly. Think about the language needed for finance professionals versus people in healthcare or complex manufacturing. The jargon, the level of precision required, even the pace of discussion are all wildly different. A general course just can't offer that kind of specificity.
And their scope of programs is pretty comprehensive. They have English as a second language training, tailored for different industries so the vocabulary is immediately relevant.
But importantly, they go further. Beyond just specialized English, they offer foreign language training and, this is crucial, cross-cultural training programs. This recognizes that high-level clarity isn't just about phonetics. It's also about understanding the cultural nuances of communication.
What are some examples of that? Of cross-cultural communication that could derail clarity even if your pronunciation is perfect?
Well, consider the cultural meaning of silence. In some cultures, a long pause after a question signals deep thought and respect.
Okay.
In a typical American business setting, that same silence might be interpreted as hesitancy, a lack of knowledge, or even an inability to answer.
Which would cost you professional credibility.
Instantly. So cross-cultural training teaches you how to manage things like directness, feedback, meeting etiquette, and nonverbal cues. They're all vital components of professional communication that go way beyond pronunciation.
And that level of customized, holistic training ties directly back to our listener profile, the learner who needs quick, thorough, and highly specific knowledge to advance their career. These resources are designed for the professional who sees improving clarity as an investment, not just a hobby.
It is entirely an investment. If you're a professional who recognizes this need for a structured, business-oriented approach to move past that fluency plateau and toward real articulation, these formalized solutions exist. And for anyone interested, the organization provides contact methods. Their phone is 6131-300, and the email is training@languageconnections.com.
We have completed our deep dive into the 7 core strategies for building genuine clarity and confidence in English. We've emphasized the need for objective feedback through self-recording and a partner, and the mechanical mastery needed to control your pace and conquer problem sounds.
The key takeaways are clear and operational. You have to commit to continuous, targeted repetition. And remember those 3 structural components for successful delivery. Slow down, pause effectively to control the rhetoric, and enunciate every single word to reduce friction for your listener.
And finally, that critical mindset, which is all about consistency. Treating this skill like any other professional endeavor that demands daily, high-frequency practice.
And separating that strategic avoidance using synonyms in a performance from the rigorous training you do in private.
Exactly. And that leads us to our final provocative thought for you to consider today, building on that powerful analogy from the source material.
If communication is a professional skill like learning a sport or a musical instrument, then it demands a non-negotiable training regimen. So our question to you is this: What is this specific training schedule you can commit to starting today? Will it be 15 minutes of dedicated drilling every morning? Or rehearsing your next meeting script out loud every evening?
And furthermore, based on those specific sounds that tend to cause the most friction, V, R, W, T, H, or P, which one will be your immediate surgical focus area? Identify it, find 3 high-stakes, professional words that contain it, and start your targeted drills tomorrow. The deep dive is complete. It's time to turn these tips into action.
Thank you for joining us.
We'll see you next time. Welcome back to the deep dive. I want to start with something I think every single person learning a language knows deep down. You can be amazing at reading English, right?
Yeah.
You can ace all the grammar tests.
Oh, yeah.
But then the moment comes when you actually have to speak, and the words just, they get stuck. It feels like they're trapped.
It's the classic roadblock, the single most common one.
It's like you have the key, you know all the words, but you can't find the door. Does that sound familiar?
It's completely familiar, and there's a really clear reason why. Reading and listening, they're basically passive skills. You have time to think, to process, maybe look up a word.
Right, there's no pressure.
Exactly. But speaking, that is active. It's happening in real time, and it's high stakes. Your brain is trying to do like 4 or 5 things at once.
Okay, like what?
Well, it's finding the right vocabulary, arranging the grammar, pronouncing the sounds,
And trying to keep the conversation actually flowing.
all at the same time, and usually with someone staring right at you.
When you put it like that, it sounds completely exhausting, and it explains why we all just freeze. That processing time is the killer.
It's a huge cognitive load, and the faster the conversation goes, the bigger that load gets.
Yeah.
And that's exactly why you need structure. You need a method.
Okay, so let's unpack that. Our mission today is to give you a blueprint. We're diving into a guide with 12 really practical, proven methods to get you past that mental traffic jam and to help you confidently speak English.
And this whole journey, it has to start with reframing what fluency even is. The source material is really clear on this right from the start.
What's the big idea?
Fluency isn't about having 0 mistakes. It's not about perfection. Functionally, it's about being able to communicate smoothly and confidently despite making a few errors along the way.
That is the aha moment, isn't it? That's what we need to just get into our heads right now. It's not about being perfect, it's about flow.
Think about it like learning to ride a bike. The first time you get on, you're wobbly. You're thinking about every single little thing, pedaling, balancing, steering. You probably fall.
A few times, yeah.
But you keep doing it, and eventually all of that becomes muscle memory. You just go. You're not thinking about the mechanics anymore. The skill has moved from the slow, conscious part of your brain to the fast, automatic part.
And that's what we need for speaking. We need those mental shortcuts and that physical muscle memory in our mouths because you can't be recalling grammar rules in the middle of a fast conversation.
You can't, and that's why these methods focus so much on daily habits and just doing it, moving the skill from your head to your mouth.
So we have a really clear roadmap for you. We've broken it down into 4 parts: foundational habits, cognitive hacks, refinement techniques, and finally, tools and lifestyle changes.
Let's jump right in. Section 1, establishing the foundational habits. This is all about building that linguistic muscle memory.
And the first method sounds almost too simple, but it is the foundation for everything else. Speak English every single day.
People tend to overlook this one, but the source insists that consistency is so much more important than intensity. Speaking for 10 minutes every day is way better than trying to cram for 2 hours on a Sunday.
I wonder about that, though. 10 minutes feels like nothing. Why does that tiny daily dose work so much better?
It's all about neuroplasticity. When you cram, your brain sees it as this big, one-off, high-effort thing. But 10 minutes every day, that's a consistent signal. You're training 2 things at once, your mind and your mouth.
Okay, tell me more about the mouth training part.
Your mouth, your tongue, your lips, they are muscles. They need to physically learn how to make English sounds that might not even exist in your native language. Think about the sound, for example.
Right.
Your tongue literally needs daily practice to make that sound quickly without you having to consciously think, okay, tongue between the teeth. It has to become a physical, automatic skill.
So it's like going to the gym for your mouth.
In a way, yes. And mentally, that daily practice helps your brain start to skip that translation step we talked about. It's a little nudge every day to just think directly in English.
So what does this daily practice actually look like, especially if you don't have someone to talk to? The guide has some great tips, and the first one feels a little weird, which is probably why it works.
The self-talk.
Yes. Talk to yourself about anything.
It feels so awkward at first, and most people skip it for that reason. But it is one of the best low-pressure ways to practice. There's no fear, no judgment. It's just you and the language.
So, for example, if you're making dinner, you just narrate it. Okay, I'm cracking 2 eggs into the pan. Now I'm adding a little salt. I should turn the heat down. Simple present tense sentences about what's right in front of you.
You can do it with your whole routine. Just narrate your day. I'm walking to the bus stop now. Looks like the weather is cloudy. Oh, I need to remember to buy milk later. It turns that dead time into active practice.
Another really powerful one is to read aloud for 10 minutes. This is where you start to get a feel for the rhythm and flow of the language.
And it's not just reading to understand the text. It's about focusing on the physical feeling, the movement of your mouth, how the words link together. English is what we call a stress-timed language.
What does that mean exactly, a stress-timed language?
So a language like Spanish is syllable-timed. Every syllable gets roughly the same amount of time, ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. But in English, the timing is based on the stressed syllables. The unstressed syllables get kind of rushed or squeezed in between to keep the rhythm.
Ah, so that's why I am going to becomes I'm going.
Precisely. Reading aloud helps you practice that natural blending and linking of words. It trains you to find the rhythm, not just say the individual words perfectly.
So less like a robot, more like music.
Exactly. And the last habit here is absolutely critical. Record yourself. Just use the voice notes app on your phone. Record yourself talking for a minute, and then, and this is the important part, listen back.
Why is that so powerful? Is it because we just don't hear ourselves accurately in the moment?
We don't. When you're speaking, you're juggling that huge cognitive load. You can't also be an objective judge of your own speech.
Yeah.
Listening back later is where the real learning happens. You'll notice where you stumble or if you overuse or where you hesitate. It's pure data.
Okay, that brings us to method 2, which is about stepping out of that solo practice bubble. Have real conversations.
This is where the magic really is. Self-practice builds the mechanics, but real conversations force you to think on your feet. Textbooks teach you the rules, but real life teaches you how people actually talk.
With all the interruptions and slang and everything.
All of it. It forces your brain to work under real-time pressure.
And the guide says you can start really small, like just ordering a coffee. Don't just point. Use a full sentence. Hi, could I please get a large oat cappuccino?
Every single one of those small, successful interactions is a little confidence boost.
And if you have English-speaking colleagues, make small talk a priority. Just a minute or two. How was your weekend? Did you see the game last night? Those little exchanges build up your quick response muscles.
But what if you don't have that? What if you're not surrounded by English speakers every day? You can't just pack up and move to London.
Right. And that's where technology has become such a huge game changer.
Absolutely. The source mentions online platforms like Tandem or HelloTalk, which are amazing for finding language exchange partners all over the world for free.
But there's also been this huge shift to something you can use anytime. 24/7.
Yes, the rise of AI conversation partners. This has completely revolutionized daily practice for anyone who feels really shy or just has that fear of being judged.
Which is almost everyone.
Which is almost everyone, right? These tools give you a totally safe, pressure-free space. You can have a real conversation whenever you want, and this is key. You get instant feedback on your grammar and your pronunciation.
That's something a human partner might be too polite to give you constantly.
Exactly. And the cost is a huge factor. Getting that kind of personalized feedback 24/7 is just a fraction of the cost of a human tutor. It makes daily practice sustainable for pretty much anyone. It just accelerates that feedback loop so you correct mistakes right away.
Okay, this leads perfectly into method 3, which is another way to use your time well. Watch English movies, TV shows, and YouTube. This isn't just about relaxing, it's about training your ear.
Mm-hmm. You're absorbing natural rhythm, slang, different accents, different speeds, all the stuff that formal classes just don't teach you.
But you have to do it in a structured way. It's not just passive watching. The guide has a great 3-step process.
Right. First, you start with English subtitles on. This helps you connect the sounds you're hearing with the written words. Then you rewatch that same scene or episode without them to really test your ear.
And then comes the active part. Pause and repeat useful phrases. When you hear a character say something that sounds really natural, like, I'm swamped today, or I couldn't agree more.
You pause it and you say it out loud a few times, and you really try to mimic their intonation, their emotion.
And that leads to the technique that every single fluency coach swears by. Shadowing.
Shadowing is phenomenal. It's not just repeating after a pause. You're trying to speak at almost the exact same time as the speaker, like a vocal shadow. You play a line and you say it right along with them, copying everything, the tone, the speed, the rhythm.
Why is that so powerful? What's happening in the brain there?
It's a process called motor mimicry. It basically forces a direct link between your ears and your mouth, and it bypasses that whole analytical part of your brain that's worried about grammar rules. You stop thinking about how to say it, and you just focus on the sound and the shape of the phrase.
So it's building that muscle memory for the rhythm of English we were talking about.
Exactly that. It's training your voice to adopt the music of a native speaker, which is so critical for being understood. And just remember to copy the emotion, too. Don't just say the words flatly.
And another great tip is to just summarize the plot for 2 minutes after you finish watching. It forces you to recall vocabulary and structure your thoughts.
Which brings us to method 4, audio immersion. Listen to English music and podcasts. This is perfect for turning your commute or chores into learning time.
But again, the key is active listening, not just having it on in the background. If you're totally focused on driving, you're not really learning.
Right. Active listening means you're actually trying to understand. If you miss something, you rewind and listen again. For music, a great tip is just to sing along.
Oh, I love that one.
Singing is amazing for learning. It connects language to emotion and memory. It helps with rhythm, stress patterns, and you remember vocabulary so much better when it's tied to a melody.
I'd probably start with someone with really clear lyrics, like Taylor Swift or Ed Sheeran, maybe the Beatles. Probably not a super fast rapper, at least not at first.
Good call. And for podcasts, you do something similar. Repeat the sentences, listen to a sentence, pause the podcast, and say the sentence out loud. It's a simple listen and repeat drill that really works.
The source even gave some great recommendations for learner-friendly podcasts. Things like BBC Learning English, The English We Speak for Idioms, 6-Minute English, and All Ears English for more natural American conversation.
Okay, so we've built the foundation with daily habits. Now let's get into section 2, the cognitive hacks. These are the mental shortcuts to stop that slow translation process and make things stick.
Method 5 is all about vocabulary, which can feel like this huge, scary mountain to climb. Learn vocabulary in context, not from isolated lists.
This is such a time saver. Memorizing lists of words is, well, it's boring, but more importantly, it's just not effective. It doesn't teach you how to use the word.
Right. You might know the definition of a word, but not which words it likes to hang out with.
Exactly. You're talking about collocation. That's the technical term. It's about which words naturally partner up. In English, we say heavy rain, not strong rain. We make a decision. We don't do a decision. Learning words in isolation means you miss all those natural pairings.
So the main strategy here is whenever you find a new word, you write down the full sentence you found it in. That sentence is the context. It shows you how the word is actually used.
And then right away, you have to activate it. The advice is to use that new word in 3 different sentences of your own, immediately. That moves it from passive knowledge, where you just recognize it, to active knowledge, where you can actually use it.
I love that. So if I learn the word exhausted, I don't just write the definition. I'd write, I was exhausted after that workout. She looked exhausted in the meeting. The long drive left me absolutely exhausted.
Perfect. You've used it in 3 different contexts. And another great trick is to group words by topic. So instead of learning random words from a dictionary, you'd learn a group like cloudy, drizzle, downpour, humid, chilly, all under the topic of weather. It creates these mental maps.
And we have to mention spaced repetition apps here, like Anki or Memrise. They use an algorithm to show you a word right before you're about to forget it, which is just incredibly efficient for memorization.
Okay, moving to method 6. This might be the single most important thing for getting better, faster. Get feedback on your speaking. Without it, you can practice for years and just be reinforcing the same mistakes over and over.
You risk those mistakes becoming fossilized. That sounds bad.
It is. It means the error becomes a permanent habit that's really hard to break. Feedback is your GPS. It tells you exactly where you need to adjust.
So how do we get it? Well, first, there's self-correction. We talked about recording yourself. When you listen back, you have to be your own critic. Where did I hesitate? Am I using too much? Those pauses are data points.
And for external feedback, if you have friends who speak English, you have to give them permission. You have to say, hey, please feel free to correct my mistakes. I really want to learn. Most people are too polite to do it otherwise.
That's a great point. You have to ask for it.
But again, technology offers an amazing shortcut here.
The guide really emphasizes these modern AI language tools and their ability to analyze your speech in real time.
The specificity is what's so incredible. It's not just general advice. These tools can tell you exactly which syllable you stressed incorrectly in a word, or analyze the sound waves of your voice to give you feedback on a specific vowel sound. The feedback loop is instant.
That real-time coaching makes the ultimate cognitive hack method 7 so much more achievable, which is think in English.
This is the holy grail. This is how you unlock speed. Let's just go over that slow, painful, 5-step translation loop one more time.
Okay. First, you hear English. Second, you translate it into your own language.
Third, you think of what you want to say in your language. Fourth, you translate your response back into English.
And finally, fifth, you actually speak. That's exhausting just describing it.
It's completely unsustainable for a real conversation. So the whole goal is to train your brain to just skip steps 2, 3, and 4, create a direct highway from an English thought to English speech.
How do you even start doing that?
You start small. The first exercise is easy. Describe your immediate surroundings. Just look around the room you're in right now and mentally name things in English. I see a laptop, a coffee mug, a window, a blue chair.
You're just labeling your world in English.
Then you mentally plan your day in English. When you wake up, just think, okay, first I need to check my emails, then I have a meeting at 10, then I need to go grocery shopping.
And then there's narrating your simple actions as you do them. I'm opening the fridge, I'm pouring some milk. It forces you to use that present continuous tense, which is so common in daily life.
And finally, keep an English thought journal. Don't worry about perfect grammar. The goal is just to get your internal monologue out of your head and onto the page, but entirely in English. You're building that habit.
It takes discipline for sure. You have to catch yourself translating and just gently redirect your brain back to English.
It's like breaking any other habit, but that's where true fluency and speed come from.
Okay, we've got the habits and the hacks. Section 3 is about refinement, making your speech not just correct, but clear, natural, and engaging.
Method 8 is so important, and so many learners skip it. Master pronunciation and intonation. They focus so much on grammar and then wonder why people still ask them to repeat themselves.
Right, and good pronunciation isn't about sounding like you're from London or New York. It's just about being clearly understood.
Exactly. And it's so much more than just getting the vowel sounds right. It goes back to English being a stress-timed language. The rhythm is key.
So there are 3 big things to focus on here. The first is word stress, emphasizing the right syllable.
Yes, the classic example is present, the noun, versus present, the verb. Stress the wrong syllable, and you've changed the word.
The second is sentence rhythm, which is that natural flow, stressing the important words and kind of blurring the little ones.
And third, intonation. The music of your voice, the way it rises and falls. It's how we know if you're asking a question or making a statement, or if you're excited or bored.
That example in the source about how sentence stress changes the whole meaning is it's mind-blowing.
It's fantastic. Okay, take the sentence. I didn't say he stole my money. Watch what happens when I stress a different word. I didn't say he stole my money.
Meaning, someone else said it.
Exactly. I didn't say he stole my money.
I just implied it.
I didn't say he stole my money.
He stole someone else's money.
Yeah.
It's a completely different story every single time.
That really shows you that you have to focus on the stress and rhythm, not just the words.
So how do we practice this?
Well, we have to bring back shadowing. It's the #1 best technique for this. It trains your rhythm, your intonation, everything, all at once.
And that idea of recording and comparing.
Yeah.
Record yourself saying one of those sentences, then find a native speaker saying it and listen for the difference. Where's the music different?
And you can do targeted practice. If you're a Spanish speaker, focus on the difference between V and B. If you're a Japanese speaker, maybe R and L. Drill down on your specific challenges.
And you have to learn the common contractions. No one says, I would have in a casual chat. They say, I would. Learning those makes you sound so much more natural.
Let's move to method 9. Summarize everything. The source argues that explaining something is one of the best speaking workouts there is.
Why is that? What makes it better than just describing something?
Because when you summarize, you have to do so many things at once. You have to recall vocabulary, structure your thoughts logically, use grammar correctly, and do it all without a script. It's a real test of your active skills.
So how can we practice this? Well, right after you watch a video or listen to a podcast, just spend 2 minutes explaining the main points out loud. To your cat, to a plant, it doesn't matter.
Or if you read an article, close it, and then summarize the main ideas in your own words. Don't worry about getting every detail right. Just hit the highlights.
I really like the challenge they included, the 3-sentence rule.
It's a great one. Forcing yourself to boil down a complex topic into just 3 sentences is tough, but it trains you to think clearly and concisely.
So if you watch a documentary on climate change, you might say, the film showed how rising temperatures are melting polar ice. This is causing sea levels to rise and threatening animal habitats. The main conclusion was that we need a rapid shift to renewable energy. Boom, 3 sentences.
Exactly. And method 10 is all about doing this with other people. Join speaking clubs and language exchange communities.
You can only get so far on your own. You need interaction. Being in a community gives you practice, feedback, motivation. You hear different accents, it makes it fun.
And you need variety. Practicing with native speakers is great, but practicing with other learners can be really good for your confidence because you realize everyone is making mistakes.
So where do you find these people? We've talked about apps like Tandem and HelloTalk. There's also italki for tutors, and locally you can look on meetup.com or find clubs like Toastmasters.
And the most important piece of advice here is don't wait until you're good enough to join. That's the whole point of these groups, to practice and make mistakes in a safe place. Perfection is the enemy of progress.
Our final section is about the tools, goals, and lifestyle changes that will keep you going for the long haul.
Method 11 is about using technology to practice anytime, anywhere. We all have a powerful language learning tool right in our pocket, our smartphone.
So what's the most impactful tech to use?
I think it's the tools that can simulate a real conversation.
Mhm.
We keep coming back to the AI English tutors because they solve the biggest problems: fear of judgment and lack of a practice partner. They give you that real-time conversational practice with instant feedback 24/7.
I also love the simple trick of using speech recognition, like asking Siri or Google a question.
It's the perfect pronunciation test, isn't it? If your phone understands you on the first try, your pronunciation is clear enough. If it takes 3 tries, you know which words you need to work on.
You can also use voice journaling apps to keep up that daily speaking habit without needing a partner.
And the simplest immersion trick of all: change your device language to English. It forces you to learn all that everyday tech vocabulary without even trying.
Okay, method 12 is about structure. Set clear goals and track your progress. The source makes a great point here. I want to speak better is a wish, not a goal.
A goal has to be SMART specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. If you can't measure it, you'll lose motivation because you'll never feel like you're making progress.
So what does a good goal look like?
Well, for a beginner, it might be: I will speak for 5 minutes every day without stopping to look up a word. For an intermediate learner, I will have one 10-minute conversation with a language partner each week.
An advanced learner might aim for something like, I will be able to debate a complex topic for 15 minutes without translating in my head.
And you have to track it. Keep a journal. Record yourself once a week to hear the difference. And you have to celebrate the small wins. Successfully ordering food, understanding a joke in a movie, those things matter. They build momentum.
The source gives a great, detailed example goal that pulls it all together. For the next 30 days, I will speak English for at least 10 minutes every day. I'll record myself 3 times a week. By the end of the month, I want to comfortably talk about my job without translating in my head.
That's a perfect goal. And that leads to the final bonus tip, which is really the whole philosophy. Immerse yourself. Make it a lifestyle. You have to create an English environment wherever you are.
So practical things, like putting sticky notes on things in your house refrigerator, mirror, keyboard in English. Or following English-speaking creators on social media to get that casual, modern language.
And the big one is linking English to your hobbies. If you love cooking, watch cooking shows in English. If you're into fitness, follow fitness instructors in English. It makes learning feel effortless because you're already motivated by the topic.
Okay, before we wrap up, we need a quick reality check. What are the common mistakes or pitfalls that people fall into?
Well, the biggest one is studying grammar rules without actually speaking. You can know all the theory in the world, but speaking is a physical skill. It's performance. You have to balance study with practice.
The second is only practicing alone. It's a great start, but you miss out on the unpredictable nature of real conversation.
Third, and this is the confidence killer, being afraid of mistakes. You have to get over that. Mistakes are just data. They show you what to work on.
Fourth, trying to sound perfect.
Yeah.
The goal is clarity, not a perfect native accent. If people understand you, you're succeeding.
And the last one is just giving up too soon. This is a marathon, not a sprint. There will be plateaus, but consistency is what wins in the end.
Let's do a quick FAQ round. First question everyone asks, How long does it actually take?
Realistically, if you practice for 30 to 60 minutes a day, you'll see a big improvement in your ability to have simple conversations within about 3 to 6 months. But to get to a point where you're truly fluent and thinking in English, that's more like a 1 to 2 year journey of consistent effort.
Can I really get fluent without ever leaving my home country?
Absolutely, 100%. Between self-talk, online partners, and AI tutors, you can create a total immersion environment right where you are.
What's the fastest way? If you could only do three things.
Speak every single day, have real conversations to test yourself, and get constant, specific feedback on your mistakes so you can fix them quickly.
Do I absolutely need a native speaker to practice with?
You don't. They're great, but practicing with other advanced learners or with a good AI tool can be just as effective. What matters is the quality and frequency of your practice, not the passport of your partner.
British or American English?
Ooh.
Which one do I pick?
Honestly, just pick the one you're exposed to most or the one you like the sound of. They are so similar. Once you're fluent in one, understanding the other is easy. And a final big question. Does watching TV actually work, or am I just procrastinating?
It works, but only if you're an active viewer. If you just watch passively, you'll improve your listening, sure. But to improve your speaking, you have to use the techniques. Pause and repeat, shadow the actors, and summarize the plot afterwards.
So we've covered a ton of ground here, 12 different methods.
The big takeaways for me are really clear. You have to speak daily, you have to force your brain to think in English, and you have to get feedback so you're not just practicing your mistakes.
And remember, confidence doesn't come from being perfect. It comes from the experience of trying, making mistakes, and just keeping going. All the tools are out there now.
And if you're serious about getting that practice in, and you want that instant personalized feedback, especially if you're a bit shy or just don't have a practice partner available 24/7, you should really check out the AI English tutor, Fluently.
As the source mentions, Fluently is designed specifically for that real back-and-forth conversation practice. It analyzes your speech in real time, your grammar, your pronunciation, your fluency, and gives you really targeted feedback.
And the value is just incredible. It's $89 for a whole year, which is less than what a single hour with a private tutor can cost. And you get unlimited practice. You can check your English level and get started at getfluently.app. So, to leave you with a final thought, to build on this idea of immersion, don't just speak English, try to live in it. Here's a challenge. Pick one part of your life, the news you read, the music you listen to, the social media you follow, and switch it completely to English, starting today. Turn that passive interest into active practice and just watch what happens. Have you ever had that feeling where your English sounds a bit disconnected? I mean, you put in all the work, years of it. Your vocabulary is great, your grammar's spot on, maybe even better than some native speakers.
Right.
But when you actually speak, it feels like the message just lands flat. You sound fluent, but not compelling. Maybe you get misunderstood, or you just feel like your confidence isn't really coming through in your voice.
That is an incredibly frustrating place to be, and it's so common for high-level learners. They instinctively feel like they need to study more complex grammar, more niche words.
Yeah, pile on more information.
Exactly. But based on this huge stack of material we've gathered for this deep dive, that fundamental disconnect. It's not about the words, it's not grammatical, it's entirely melodic.
That's it. Today, we are going deep, a really detailed exploration into what is basically the secret ingredient that turns competent English into captivating English. And that ingredient is intonation. We've got a fantastic set of sources here, research papers, linguistic analyses, a lot of practical guides, and they're all focused on mastering the melodic flow of English intonation. So our mission for you, the listener, is pretty simple. We want to give you a shortcut to sounding authentically fluent and truly confident.
And we do that by unlocking the power of pitch, stress, and rhythm, all working together.
Exactly.
You can almost think of intonation as like a GPS for the listener. It's guiding them through your meaning, through your emotional intent.
I like that analogy.
Without it, the listener is just lost. They're just wandering through this flat landscape of words. So fundamentally, intonation is the music of the language. And it works on 3 levels at once. The first is pitch. That's the vertical movement, how high or low your voice goes.
Okay.
The second is stress. So the emphasis you put on certain syllables or whole words. And the third part is rhythm, which is all about the timing and how you connect your speech.
So if you can master that trinity, that melody, you really gain a huge advantage. You're not just communicating facts anymore. You're conveying emotion. You're telling the listener what's important, and you're projecting real authority.
It's the difference between just being heard and actually being understood
Oh.
and remembered.
Let's start with what the sources are calling the silent power of pitch.
Let's do it.
When we talk about pitch, what we're really talking about is the fundamental frequency of your voice, how fast your vocal cords are vibrating. It's that sort of dynamic wave that flows under every single word you say. The research we looked at consistently calls it the emotional blueprint of speech, and I find that term so helpful. It really frames intonation as the first filter. Everything you say gets passed through it.
It's so true. Pitch carries emotion much faster than the actual words do. I mean, our brains are hardwired to decode vocal tone first.
It's evolutionary, right?
Totally. You don't wait for someone to finish saying the sentence, "I am incredibly angry right now," before you know they're angry. You hear the high pitch, you hear the sharp tone, the stress, and that emotional context is delivered instantly.
So when you remove that intonation, when it's flat,
You're stripping away all that context, all that vulnerability, really. The words just become functional, emotionally neutral.
we rely on that shifting pitch to communicate everything from, sarcasm to excitement to just subtle doubt without ever having to spell it out.
The words themselves are almost just placeholders for the melody.
Yeah.
To really illustrate this, let's take a super simple, very common phrase, just 2 words.
Oh, really?
It's a perfect little diagnostic tool, isn't it? Because the literal meaning is so neutral. It's just acknowledging what someone said.
Right.
But the intent, that's all in the voice.
Exactly. So let's break down, say, 3 scenarios. First, imagine you deliver that phrase with a really sudden, high, sharp rise in pitch, especially in that second word.
Oh, really?
Right. To me, that sounds like genuine surprise, maybe even excitement. I'm shocked by what you just told me, or maybe I'm thrilled by some good news. That upward pitch signals a big emotional reaction.
Yeah, your voice goes higher than the rest of the conversation because the information is so new, so unexpected.
Okay, so what's the second version?
Now, compare that to the same words, but this time it's a relatively level, maybe even low pitch, and then a really sharp downward movement on really, oh, really?
That's completely different. That's skepticism, or even sarcasm.
Totally. A verbal eye
So
roll.
it's like, I don't believe you at all. I might be dismissing what you're saying. That downward pitch just sounds so final, so judgmental, even though the words are identical.
And then there's a third way. Imagine a really subtle, kind of hesitant delivery. The voice stays almost flat, maybe a little low, and it ends with a very gentle, almost unnoticeable upward lift.
Oh, really? That one sounds doubtful. Or maybe reflective, like I'm not sure I understand, or I'm trying to process what you just said. It signals that I need more information, or more time. It just kind of leaves the conversation hanging.
So the words never changed, not once. But the meaning shifted radically, from surprise to sarcasm to doubt, and it was all based on the movement of your voice. That's how powerful pitch is. It communicates before the words even register.
And this brings us to what I think is the most important insight from all this material for any learner. It's the difference between an accent and being monotone.
Yes.
The sources all stress this. Your native accent is rarely the main barrier to clarity. Monotonous intonation is.
That is worth repeating, because learners spend so much time and energy trying to erase their accent. They get self-conscious about every single vowel.
But an accent is just about pronunciation, right? It's how you shape sounds because of your first language. And frankly, accents can add a lot of character.
They absolutely can. But monotone is different. Monotone isn't an issue of sound quality, it's an issue of sound dynamics.
So a monotone speaker, their voice just stays on one flat pitch. There are no peaks, no valleys.
Exactly. And when a listener hears that flatness, they struggle to find that emotional blueprint we were just talking about. They don't know how to interpret the message.
I find that when I listen to monotone speech, my brain has to work twice as hard. I'm trying to guess where the emphasis should be, what the emotion is, and I get tired. I disengage.
And you might misunderstand. The sources say that listeners often interpret that flatness as the speaker being unengaged or uncaring or even uncertain, even if the speaker is trying to communicate something really exciting.
That's the tragedy of it. Someone could be incredibly passionate about their topic, but if their vocal delivery is flat, the message just comes across as robotic or indifferent.
And in a professional setting, that's a huge problem. Because if you sound flat, you sound uncertain. But if you sound dynamic, using controlled pitch, you sound invested. You sound confident and fluent. And that's totally separate from your accent. Mastering pitch is the fastest way to sounding authoritative.
It's about controlling the flow, not just reading the script. Okay, so if pitch is the vertical part Let's talk about the horizontal structure, the rhythm. Let's get into section 2. Unlock the rhythm code.
So, when learners first move from reading English to actually listening to native speakers, one of the biggest shocks is that it doesn't sound like a string of neat, separate words.
Right, it feels like native speakers are cheating somehow. They just mush everything together.
Yeah.
And if you try to say every single word perfectly, like you were taught, you just break that natural flow.
And that's where this whole concept of linking or connected speech is so important. It's just the practice of blending the end sound of one word right into the beginning sound of the next. It's how we speak quickly without, tripping over ourselves.
So let's get into the details of linking. What are the main ways this happens?
Well, the most common type is just a simple consonant to vowel link. So if a word ends in a consonant sound and the next one starts with a vowel sound, we build a bridge between them. So you mentioned I live in an apartment. A learner might say it very carefully. I live in an apartment.
Which is perfectly clear, but it sounds very deliberate, halting.
Right. A native speaker just naturally links those sounds. I live in an apartment. The V in live connects to in, the in connects to N, and so on. It becomes a smooth chain of sound.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have more complex things like assimilation. That's where one sound actually changes a little bit to become more like the sound next to it. Like, did you? Almost never sounds like did you.
Sounds like didja.
Exactly. Didja. Because the D sound and the Y sound blend together to make a D sound.
That's so interesting. It explains so much about why spoken English can sound so different from what you see on the page. And then there's elision, right, where a sound just disappears completely.
Yeah, like the D's in post office often gets dropped. We just say post office. It's
Yeah.
happening constantly in fast speech.
And the benefit of all this blending is twofold, I guess.
It is. For the speaker, it's just physically easier and faster to talk. And for the listener, it signals fluency. It matches the patterns their brain is expecting to hear. When a learner masters linking, their speech immediately sounds smoother and more natural. It's a huge shortcut.
Okay, so linking is the horizontal glue. But the real engine of the rhythm code is this idea of stressing for success.
This is maybe the most critical structural difference between English and a lot of other languages. English is a stress-timed language.
Meaning, we don't give equal time to every word.
Not at all. Our rhythm is built around these little bursts of emphasis on important information, and then we have these periods of really fast, reduced speech in between.
So we prioritize information using loudness, pitch, and also just making the word longer.
That's it. The words that carry the meaning, the content words, so nouns, main verbs, adjectives, adverbs, they get the stress. They're stretched a bit, spoken a bit louder, and they usually carry the main pitch movement.
And what about the other words, the little ones?
The function words, so articles, prepositions, conjunctions, those little grammar words, they get reduced. They lose their full vowel sound and often just collapse into that weak sound, the schwa, and we say them super quickly.
So if a learner tries to pronounce every single one of those function words perfectly, giving the same weight to the and in as they do to important and meeting, the rhythm just sounds completely off.
It sounds broken. They're trying to force a syllable-timed rhythm from a language like Spanish or French onto a stress-timed language like English. And that L1 interference is often the #1 reason for that flat feeling we started with. The listener's brain is waiting for the stress on the content words, and when it doesn't come, it's just hard work to listen.
And the most important reason to master stress isn't just about sounding good. It's to avoid massive misunderstandings about what you actually mean. You brought up that classic example. I didn't say he stole the money.
Yes.
Let's really take the time to break this down because it shows the absolute power of stressing just one word.
Let's do it. 7 words in that sentence. And if we stress each one, the meaning changes completely. 7 times.
Okay, start with stressing the first word, I. I didn't say he stole the money.
The focus there is all on who said it. It's a clear denial of my personal involvement. Someone else said it, maybe John, maybe Jane, but it definitely wasn't me. I'm removing myself from the accusation.
Okay. What if we stress the next word, didn't? I didn't say he stole the money.
Now the focus is on the denial itself. It's very forceful. It sounds like I'm indignant or really assertive. I am strongly denying the accusation that I said this. The negative part is what's important.
Right. What about the main verb, say, I didn't say he stole the money?
This one implies something else. I'm denying the action of speaking it out loud, but maybe I, hinted at it, or I wrote it in an email, or I gave a meaningful look. I'm denying the method, not the message itself.
That's a subtle one. Okay, stressy. I didn't say he stole the money.
Easy. The focus shifts to who did the stealing. The implication is somebody else stole it. Mary did. Or that guy over there, but it wasn't him.
Yes.
You're correcting the identity of the thief.
Okay, what about the verb stole? I didn't say he stole the money.
This one's also very nuanced. I'm admitting he has the money, but I'm arguing about the action. Maybe he just borrowed it. Maybe it was a mistake. But I deny that it qualifies as stealing.
You're debating the definition of the crime.
Exactly.
This one is tricky. What if you stress I didn't say he stole the money. It's just a function word.
It is tricky, but stressing a function word usually means you're correcting a specific detail. In this case, it might mean he stole some money, just not the specific money we were talking about. Maybe he stole the petty cash, but not the money from the safe.
Got it. And finally, stress money. I didn't say he stole the money.
That implies he stole something else entirely. He took the jewels, or the car, or the secret files, but definitely not the cash. The focus is on the object of the crime.
7 words, 7 totally different meanings, just based on which word you put the spotlight on. That level of control is, well, it's what separates basic fluency from real mastery.
Absolutely. And this brings us to the best practical tool the sources recommend for learning this rhythm called shadowing.
Shadowing is brilliant because it takes intonation practice out of your head, out of the analytical part of your brain, and puts it into your body, into muscle memory.
That's it exactly. Shadowing is where you listen to a native speaker, just a short, clear clip, like 30 seconds of a movie or a newscast, and you immediately try to mirror their speech. You're like an echo.
You're trying to speak almost at the same time, just a syllable or two behind them.
And the key is you're not focusing on the meaning of the words at all. You're copying everything else. The rhythm, the pitch changes, the speed, the stress, all the acoustic stuff.
You're training your mouth and your ears to work together. The goal is to feel that melody in your own throat.
It can feel really awkward at first, I'm not going to lie, but if you repeat the same 30-second clip 5 or 10 times, you start to just absorb that flow automatically.
It bypasses that conscious effort of thinking, okay, the rule says stress the noun here. Instead, you're just replicating the sound you hear. You're embedding the pattern.
We'd recommend starting with someone who has a really dynamic voice, maybe an expressive TV character, and do it every day, even just for 5 minutes. It's the most efficient way to turn the rules of rhythm into an unconscious, automatic skill.
Okay, so we've got the vertical movement of pitch and the horizontal timing of rhythm. Let's put them together now and look at the basic movements that define a conversation. Let's talk about mastering tones.
Tones are really those integrated melodic movements, and they usually happen right at the end of a sentence or a clause.
Yeah.
They're the signal that tells the listener whether you're asking for information or giving it. And in English, it mostly comes down to 2 movements, rising and falling.
Let's start with one everyone kind of knows, the rising question. That classic signal that you're asking something.
The rule here is super reliable. If you're asking a yes-no question, one that needs a yes or a no for an answer, your pitch has to go up at the end, like, have you filed the final report, or is the seat taken?
Ooh. That upward pitch acts like a little hook. It's trying to pull an answer out of the other person. It signals that your thought isn't finished and you need their input to complete it. If I hear that rising pitch, I know it's my turn to talk.
Exactly. If a learner uses a flat or a falling tone on a yes-no question, it can sound really strange. The listener might hear it as a confused statement or even a challenge instead of a genuine question. The rising tone keeps the conversation open.
And then the opposite of that is the falling statement, which is all about certainty and completion.
Right. Declarative statements, so facts, opinions, observations, they're almost always delivered with a downward pitch movement at the end. The new policy starts on Monday. I think the weather will improve later.
That downward movement is like a full stop. It signals finality. The speaker is done with their thought, and they're confident about it. They're telling the listener, okay, this information is complete. You can process it now.
And this falling tone is so crucial in a professional setting. If you make a definitive statement, but your voice goes up at the end, you're basically injecting doubt into your own facts.
Right.
I analyzed the sales figures, and they're up 20%. That sounds like you're looking for someone to agree with you. You sound unsure.
But I analyzed the sales figures, and they're up 20%.
Yeah,
That sounds like a conclusion, a fact you're ready to defend.
precisely.
Okay, those are the fundamentals. But we need to spend some serious time on what the sources say is a major roadblock for learners. The subtle art of tag questions. This is where intonation gets really, really tricky.
Oh, absolutely. Tag questions, those little add-ons like isn't it or don't you, are such a dynamic part of English, and their meaning completely flips depending on the melody you use.
Let's use a few examples here to really nail this down. Starting with the rising tone. Let's say I'm genuinely asking you if you like ice cream. I might say, you enjoy vanilla ice cream, don't you?
That rising pitch on "don't you" means it's a real question. You're asking for new information. You are genuinely not sure if I like vanilla and you need me to confirm it or correct you. I'm expected to give a real answer like, yes, I do, or no, I can't stand it.
It has the same function as a normal yes-no question. It's just structured differently. Okay, now let's flip it. Same words, but a filing pitch. You enjoy vanilla ice cream, don't you?
This is emphatically not a question. This is a statement that's looking for agreement. You already believe I like vanilla ice cream, and you're using the tag to build a connection to create some social consensus.
So you're just expecting me to say, yeah, I do.
Right. If I suddenly said, actually, I despise ice cream, it would be a bit socially awkward because you weren't asking for information. You were just expecting me to agree with you.
Let's try another one. Let's say we're at work, talking about our colleague, Sarah. If I say, Sarah finished the report yesterday, didn't she?
The rising tone there means, I'm not sure. I need you to confirm it for me. I've forgotten or I wasn't there. I'm asking for data.
And if I say, Sarah finished the report yesterday, didn't she?
The falling tone means I'm completely confident she finished it. I'm just using the tag as a rhetorical thing to acknowledge our shared knowledge and then move the conversation on. It basically means we both know Sarah finished the report, so let's talk about what's next.
That distinction is huge, because if a learner always defaults to a rising tone on tag questions, which is really common, they'll always sound hesitant and unsure, even when they're talking about things they know. The falling tag is a tool for social confirmation. It's a tool of control.
And it shows a really deep understanding of the social rhythm of English. Native speakers use that falling tag all the time to just grease the wheels of conversation. Mastering this one little nuance is a massive step towards sounding truly integrated.
Okay, we've talked about how intonation affects grammar and meaning. But now I want to shift focus a bit, from the mechanics to the performance. Let's talk about vocal dynamics. This is about using pitch, volume, and timing strategically to project confidence and, frankly, to command respect.
This is where intonation meets your personal brand, your perception. The question stops being, did they understand my words? And it becomes, did they perceive me as competent, as authoritative?
So many learners say they feel overlooked in meetings or that what they say doesn't seem to have much weight, and they often blame their accent. But again, the sources are pointing to dynamic control, this idea of projecting authority.
Absolutely. The foundation of authoritative speech is a controlled, decisive tone. We've touched on this, but it's worth hammering home. Authoritative speech consistently uses a falling, final tone at the end of key statements.
Because that upward inflection is always tied to uncertainty, to asking for permission.
Exactly. If you're presenting a conclusion or you're selling an idea or you're giving a directive, you have to avoid that little upward question mark at the end. Just think about the difference between we need to allocate budget to marketing next quarter and we need to allocate budget to marketing next quarter.
The first one sounds like you're asking for opinions on the idea itself.
Right. It invites debate. The second one assumes the decision is made and it moves the conversation to how we're going to do it. One is a suggestion, the other is a directive. It conveys decisiveness.
But this isn't about being loud, is it? It's not about shouting.
No, not at all. That's just noise. We're talking about projection and clarity. Authority comes from a clear, steady voice that is in control of its pitch and its pace. It's vocal gravitas. If your voice is too quiet or breathy, the message just gets lost. Clarity and control are what earn respect.
Let's circle back to our old enemy, the monotone issue, but maybe from a different angle. The sources suggest that L1 interference is a big part of it. Why do speakers of certain languages struggle with this more?
This is so important for self-awareness. Speakers whose native languages are syllable timed every syllable gets roughly the same amount of time. Like in Spanish or Italian or Mandarin, they find it incredibly difficult to adopt the stress-timed rhythm of English.
So their brains are programmed to give equal weight to every syllable. And when they speak English, it comes out flat because they're fighting that natural push and pull between the stressed content words and the reduced function words.
That's it exactly. And when they try to emphasize a word, they often just get louder. They increase the volume, but they don't change the pitch or the length of the word. So it ends up just being a slightly louder, but still flat sound. They're just overlaying their L1 rhythm onto their L2.
So the solution isn't just to not be flat. It's about actively infusing energy by consciously exaggerating those pitch variations.
The variation is what keeps your listener engaged. If your pitch and volume are all over the place in a controlled way, it mirrors enthusiasm. It shows you're invested.
And that lack of variation makes the speaker sound emotionally distant. You could be presenting the most brilliant data in the world, but if you do it monotonically, the listener subconsciously thinks you don't care about it. And if you don't care, why should they?
It makes the information itself seem less important, less urgent. Varying your pitch, volume, and pace is the simplest way to inject your personality into your speech.
And finally, let's talk about the most advanced element of dynamics, and one that learners often completely overlook: the power of the pause.
The strategic use of silence. The sources all note that when you use silence correctly, it massively enhances your impact. It's the clearest sign that a speaker is in complete control. They're not just reacting to the conversation, they're creating the flow.
Yeah, a nervous speaker will rush. They fill every tiny gap with, because silence feels terrifying. And that just signals anxiety.
But a masterful speaker weaponizes the pause. It can do a few different things. Let's look at it in three contexts: persuasion, negotiation, and storytelling.
Okay, in persuasion, how does the pause help?
In persuasion, you use a pause to create emphasis, usually right before or right after your most important word. So if I'm trying to convince a team that we need a radical change, I might say, this decision will fundamentally alter the trajectory of our entire business. Pause. Forever.
Right. That pause lets the weight of the idea sink in, and it makes that final word, forever, land like a hammer.
Yeah.
It makes the audience anticipate what's coming.
Now, in a negotiation, the pause has a different kind of power. Here, silence is a tool of confidence, of pressure. If you state your position and then you just stop talking, you force the other person to be the one to break the silence.
That's intense psychological pressure. If I make my final offer, our price is $500,000, take it or leave it, and then I just wait, silently.
You've used the falling tone to signal you're done, and now you're using the pause to force them to react to your certainty. The first person to speak after that pause often shows weakness. The pause shows you're comfortable with your position.
And what about in storytelling or public speaking?
In a public address, the pause is for the listener's brain. We've all been to those presentations where the speaker just fires off a million data points without taking a breath.
And you can't remember any of it.
Exactly. Pausing after a major idea or a complex statistic gives the audience a second to catch up, to process the information and file it away. It's actually an act of respect for your listener.
So using silence shows you're not just reciting. You are thoughtfully shaping the entire communication experience. It really is the final boss of fluency.
Okay, so we've covered the emotional architecture of pitch, the mechanics of rhythm, and the professional side of vocal dynamics. Now we have to get practical. How do you, the listener, actually integrate this knowledge into your daily practice? We need the toolkit.
The first step, according to the sources, is to change how you consume English media. You need to go from being a passive listener to an active researcher. It's what they call real-world analysis.
This means you're not just watching a TV show to understand the plot anymore. You need to become an auditory detective. When you listen to a scene, you're analyzing the intonation patterns. You're not just hearing the words, you're mapping the sound.
So what should I be listening for, specifically?
You should be listening for the stress map. Where does the pitch jump up dramatically? That's usually surprise or urgency or a new topic. Where does the pitch fall decisively? That's a conclusion or certainty or authority. And critically, where do they pause? Is it in the middle of a thought to create tension or at the end of a long sentence to let the idea land?
You're basically reverse engineering the emotional logic of the script. If an actor delivers a punchline, you analyze the tone they used right before it. If a character is arguing, you notice how their pitch gets higher and the rhythm gets faster.
By doing this, you stop focusing just on the words you don't know, and you start focusing on the actual flow of meaning. You're identifying the patterns you need to copy in your own speech. It turns 5 minutes of watching Netflix into 10 minutes of focused, active research.
Okay, but analysis isn't enough. The sources all emphasize that you have to pair it with rigorous, daily, practical exercises, drills, to build that muscle memory.
And the most effective drill, which we touched on before, is emotional repetition. It trains your voice to connect a feeling directly to a pitch pattern without you having to think about it.
So let's take a really simple neutral sentence, something like, I received the memo this afternoon.
Perfect. Now let's try to say that one sentence 6 times, but each time with a completely different emotional tone. We have to force the pitch and stress to change.
Okay, first up, huge exaggerated relief. Like, I thought this memo was lost forever.
Relief would be like, I received the memo this afternoon, thank goodness. You'd have a high pitch at the start, then it would come down and get softer. Stress on received.
Okay. Second, utter suspicion. Maybe this memo has some very questionable information in it.
Suspicion. I received the memo this afternoon, so a flat, low, slow tone. You'd stretch out afternoon with a little hesitant rise at the end to signal your doubt.
Third, strong, controlled anger. I got it, but it was way too late.
Anger. I received the memo this afternoon. You'd have a sharp stress and more volume on memo, a quick clip delivery, and a very decisive falling tone at the end.
Fourth, total boredom. Indifference.
Indifference. I received the memo this afternoon. Very low, flat pitch all the way through. You'd rush through the little words, and the end would almost be a mumble.
Fifth, high excitement. This memo has fantastic news.
Excitement. I received the memo this afternoon. High pitch jumps, maybe stress on a few different words, and a very fast pace.
And last one, number 6, profound disappointment.
Disappointment. I received the memo this afternoon. You drag the tone down, maybe a little pause before the last word. The whole sentence feels heavy and slow.
In every single one of those, the words are identical,
Yeah.
but the intonation tells the entire story.
And that's the power of the drill. If you do that every day for just 5 minutes, you build the connections you need. Intonation is a physical skill, like playing piano. You have to train the muscles and the ear to respond automatically. You want to get it out of your conscious brain and into your own conscious.
And all that daily practice leads to the final step, which is integrating this into your actual daily speech.
This is the application phase. When you're speaking English in the real world, just try to consciously apply one new thing you practiced that day. So maybe today, your mission is just to use a definitive falling tone on all your statements. Tomorrow, you focus on linking your words together.
Stop treating intonation like it's this extra optional thing. Make it an active part of how you communicate. Focus on stressing only the new important information for your listener.
When you combine shadowing with real-world analysis, with these daily drills, intonation practice stops being a chore. It becomes the most direct and, honestly, the most satisfying way to sound authentically fluent and truly confident in English.
And that, for you, the listener, is the whole point of this deep dive. Mastering this melodic flow will fundamentally transform your presence when you speak and make sure your message lands exactly the way you want it to. #outro.
This has been a really profound deep dive into the whole architecture of English vocal dynamics. Let's do a quick summary of the 4 big areas we unlocked. First, we established that pitch is the primary emotional blueprint. We showed how a simple phrase like, "oh, really?" can mean anything from genuine shock to deep sarcasm.
Second, we decoded the rhythm code of English. We learned how linking words creates flow and how the power of stress on the right words is absolutely essential for avoiding huge misunderstandings.
Third, we mastered the basic tones. That rising tone for a real yes-no question, the definitive falling tone for certainty, and that really crucial difference between rising and falling tag questions.
And finally, we explored vocal dynamics. We recognized that controlled pitch and projection, combined with the strategic use of silence, are essential tools for commanding professional respect and authority.
This knowledge is your ultimate shortcut. It cuts down on communication errors, it reduces the perception that you're uncertain, and it just accelerates your path to real confidence in English. You're no longer just saying the words, you are conducting the music.
I want to leave you with one final provocative thought that brings us right back to the beginning, to our discussion on pitch. We focused on how you can use intonation. But I want you to consider how intonation is received, especially across different languages. Non-native English speakers who are really good listeners often rely on the intonation first, the melody, to figure out the speaker's emotional state, even before they fully understand all the words or the complex grammar. Intonation is that universal emotional signal. It's the constant that cuts through the vocabulary.
That's a brilliant point, and it suggests a really powerful exercise. Tonight, when you're watching a movie or the news in English, try this. Close your eyes for just 1 minute and only listen to the melody. Don't focus on the words. Can you tell if the speaker is annoyed or happy or uncertain or definitive based only on the pitch and the rhythm?
You will realize so quickly just how much meaning is riding entirely on that melodic flow. So dive deep into the music of English and just watch your fluency and your confidence soar. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are tackling one of the biggest, most practical questions we ever get. It's all about, how do I actually learn English quickly? How to get efficient with it?
It's a fantastic mission for a deep dive.
Uh,
And the listener who sent in this material, they're really looking to get past those common roadblocks, that feeling of being stuck, you
all
know?
that intermediate
Yeah.
plateau, it's a real thing. Or
Mhm.
just the frustration of even starting out and feeling like you're getting nowhere.
Exactly. And they're looking for a roadmap, something they can actually execute, not just motivational quotes.
And this collection of research is just incredible for that. It's not theory, it's a series of really specific, actionable methods, things you can do today. Yeah. Our listener wants a system that turns study time into real, measurable fluency.
Right. We've got 7 pages here, all meticulously compiled. It covers everything from your mental game all the way to daily routines. Our job is to pull out the highest leverage points, the real hacks.
The first thing that just jumps right off the page is this core idea that runs through everything. It's that learning English quickly is less about some kind of natural talent.
The language gene.
Yeah, exactly. It's much more about your approach and your mindset. They treat it like a skill you build, not something you're born with.
Which sort of democratizes the whole thing, right? It makes it accessible to anyone who's willing to apply the strategy. If you get the right systems in place, the learning almost takes care of itself.
I love that. It just immediately removes that excuse of, oh, I'm just not good at languages.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We have to start with the foundation, with those crucial mental shifts the experts recommend.
Right. So section 1 really gets into the psychology of it all. The experts are very clear that a lot of people fail, but not because English is just impossibly hard. It's because their initial approach is, well, just wrong from the get-go.
And that hits on this problem of just vague desire. You hear it all the time. I want to be fluent. But according to this material, a goal like that is basically useless.
It's too broad. It doesn't give you any momentum. It's like a business plan with no actual numbers in it. How do you know when you've won? These documents stress you have to define precise, measurable goals. You need to give your GPS a specific address.
And the examples they give are so good because they're time-bound and you can test them. It's not about studying forever. It's about hitting a target. Like, I want to hold a 10-minute conversation with a native speaker in 30 days.
Or, I want to pass the B2 English test by the end of this quarter. It could even be a lifestyle goal, you know? I want to watch my favorite show, 2 episodes, with no subtitles. They're tangible. You know when you've done it.
So why does that work so much better? Is it just about motivation?
It's a bit deeper than that. It's about cognitive feedback. So, yes, first, it keeps you motivated because you can see the finish line. But the second, and this is the really key part, it gives you measurable proof of your progress. When you actually have that 10-minute conversation, you haven't just practiced, you've hit your objective. That success is real, concrete evidence that your system is working, and that's the fuel that prevents burnout.
That makes perfect sense. So from that big idea of setting goals, the material moves to another huge foundational piece.
Yeah.
This idea that you have to stop translating everything in your head.
Mm-hmm.
The mandate is to start thinking in English.
Yes. This is maybe the biggest silent killer of fluency, even for advanced learners. They use their native language like a filter, constantly translating ideas back and forth.
It's like a two-step process every time you want to say something.
Exactly. And that double processing, it slows you down so much. It also guarantees your speech will sound a little stilted, a little unnatural, because you're forcing the grammar rules of one language onto another.
The sources recommend a really simple way to start breaking this habit, which is great because it feels like something you can do right now. It's about starting an internal monologue in English.
Absolutely. The moment you feel thirsty, force yourself to think the phrase, I need water. Don't let your brain think it in your native language first. When you're doing a chore, narrate it. I am washing the dishes now. Where is my phone?
So you're training your brain to link the English word directly to the thing or the action or the feeling, instead of linking the English word to the word in your language.
Precisely. You're bypassing that translation step completely. You're building automaticity, and that is the absolute cornerstone of being conversationally fluent. This process trains your brain way faster than just memorizing grammar rules from a book.
I have to imagine that feels really tiring at first, though. Like mentally exhausting.
Yeah.
To constantly police your own thoughts.
Oh, yeah. At first, you'll feel what they call cognitive fatigue. It's hard work. You're forcing a new pathway in your brain. But every single time you manage to skip that translation, you're building a shortcut. Think of it like walking through a forest. The first few times it's tough, but eventually you wear down a path and it becomes automatic. That path, that's fluency.
That's a great analogy. Okay, and the last part of this foundation section tackles the biggest mental block of all. The fear of making mistakes. The material frames them not as failures, but as proof of learning.
This psychological reframe is so essential. If you're afraid of making mistakes, you just choose silence, and silence is the enemy of fluency. The notes remind us that native speakers, they prioritize understanding you over you having perfect grammar.
I mean, that's so true. If you wait until your grammar is perfect before you speak, you literally will never speak.
Never. The goal is always communication, not perfection. Fluency comes from using language, messing up, and trying again. And those mistakes, they're just data. They show you where you need to focus next. An error is just proof your brain tried something new.
So the foundation is have specific goals, think directly in English, and embrace the messiness of mistakes. Okay, that sets the stage perfectly. Now that we have the mindset, we need the actual stuff to learn. Let's get into the engine room. Vocabulary.
Right. And vocabulary is where so many learners just get completely buried. English has a massive number of words, but the material is clear. Learning them randomly is just so inefficient. Vocabulary is the engine, but you have to fuel it smartly.
This next section is the big aha moment for anyone looking for a shortcut. It's the 80-20 rule, but applied directly to words.
Exactly. It's all about high leverage learning.
And the statistic they provide is, it's almost hard to believe. They say that focusing on about 2,000 high-frequency words covers nearly 80% of daily conversations.
That is the single most important number in this entire deep dive. Just think about that. 2,000 words. It takes this task from an impossible mountain of 500,000 words down to a hill you can actually climb. If you know those core 2,000, you are functionally good to go in most social and work situations.
And the other 20% of words you might need are for really specific things like
Particle physics or advanced legal theory or, complicated words you'd only see in classic literature.
right. And the material gives these really simple examples to focus on. Verbs like go, come, make, take. Nouns like time, people, work, money. These are the bricks you build almost every sentence with.
They're the building blocks, the structural supports.
But wait, how does a learner find those 2,000 words? You don't just guess, right?
No, you don't guess. This is where you lean on the research. The notes point to established lists, like the new General Service List or NGSL. These have been scientifically put together based on analyzing huge amounts of spoken and written English. The point is to find one of these lists and master only those words first. It's targeted.
Okay, that's a huge piece of advice. Don't guess. Use a list. And that leads right into the next hack, which is about learning in context. The material is really strong on why memorizing single words from a list is a big mistake.
It's a huge mistake. When you memorize, say, the word opportunity by itself, you got a definition, sure, but you have no instruction manual on how to actually use it. You might know what it means, but you'll almost certainly use it wrong in a sentence.
So I might say something that sounds unnatural, like I have opportunity to go.
Right. And the documents contrast that with the effective method. Instead of just memorizing opportunity, you memorize the whole phrase, this job is a great opportunity.
Ah, so you learn the words that it naturally hangs out with, the little blue words? That's collocation, right?
Precisely. Collocation is everything. English is full of these fixed pairs, like you say, heavy rain, not strong rain. When you learn words in these chunks, you're learning grammar and usage at the same time, without a separate, boring grammar lesson.
It's the difference between learning one ingredient and learning the whole recipe, the recipe you can use immediately. Okay, this brings us to a super practical technique they call the 5-word rule.
This is brilliant because it forces you to actively use the word. It moves it from your passive memory, where most flashcard words go, to die into your active speaking memory. The rule is simple but strict. Learn just 5 new words per day.
And for each word, you have to do 3 very specific things. Let's walk through them because this feels like the core of the daily practice.
So the word doesn't count as learned until you've done all 3. First, use it in one written sentence. That forces you to get the spelling and basic grammar right. Second, use it in one spoken phrase. You have to say it out loud.
Okay, get the muscle memory going.
Exactly. And the third step is the final boss. Use it in one real conversation. This is the leap from your desk into the real world.
And that's the key, isn't it? It forces you to retrieve the word under pressure when you don't know what the other person's going to say. If you can pull it out and use it then, you really own it.
You own it. It's cemented. If you stick to this, that's 35 new, fully integrated words a week. The effect just compounds over time, and the 5-word limit stops you from getting overwhelmed.
And this all ties into their advice on using smart flashcards like Anki or Quizlet. They say these apps are great, but only if you use them right.
Right. The best practices they list are review them every single day, say the words out loud, and this is crucial, create your own example sentences.
Why is making your own example so much better?
Because if you're just looking at the example the app gives you, you're just testing your memory of that sentence. If you have to make a sentence about your day or your job, you're testing true application. You're connecting the worded to your own life. That's a much deeper cognitive process.
This whole section on vocabulary is just packed with these efficient strategies. Okay, so mindset is set. We're fueling the engine with the right words. Next step is feeding the brain with constant, structured input. And that means listening.
The experts make a really strong claim here, and it's backed by a lot of research. They say listening is the fastest, most organic way to improve your English. It just gives you this massive, rich input of vocabulary, rhythm, intonation, everything all at once.
Makes sense. It's how we learn our first language. A baby listens for years before they can speak properly.
Yeah.
We need to do the same thing.
But the key is consistency over duration. This comes up again and again. You have to listen every day for at least 20 minutes. 20 minutes a day is way, way more effective than a 4-hour cram session on a Saturday.
It keeps those neural pathways fresh.
Exactly. And they give a great list of resources, tiered for different levels. For beginners, they suggest things like the YouTube channels, BBC Learning English or Easy English, or podcasts like ESL Pod, where the hosts speak very clearly and maybe a little slower.
And as you get better, you can move on to native level stuff like movies and TV shows. But the real power move here is what they call the 3-step listening method. This turns passive listening into active learning.
It's a beautiful, simple cycle. Let's break it down.
Okay, so step 1 is listen without any subtitles.
This is the hardest step, but it's the most important. It forces your ear to train itself on the raw sound of the language, the rhythm, the linked sounds, without a visual crutch. If you always have subtitles on first, your brain just reads. It doesn't listen.
But hang on, isn't that just incredibly frustrating for a beginner? Do the notes say you just have to embrace being totally confused?
That's a great question. The goal in step 1 isn't 100% comprehension. It's just auditory processing. You're training your ear to pick out individual words from the stream of sound. And the frustration doesn't last because step 2 comes right after.
Right. Step 2, listen again, but with English subtitles on.
Now you fill in all the gaps. This is where the comprehension happens. Your brain connects the sounds it just struggled with to the correct written words. This is where you really lock in new vocabulary.
And then the final step, step 3, listen one more time without the subtitles again.
And this is the test. You've now processed it with your ears and your eyes. This third pass checks if the new understanding has actually stuck. What sounded like a blur the first time should be much, much clearer now.
That's a brilliant little loop. And the notes also say something really important about anxiety. You have to accept that you won't understand everything.
Yes. They say that understanding 60 to 70% of what you're hearing is the perfect zone for learning. If you understand 100%, it's too easy. Less than 50, it's too hard. That sweet spot forces your brain to use context clues to figure out what the unknown words mean.
That's a huge relief. You don't have to hit pause every 10 seconds. Okay, and the final listening technique they mentioned is called shadowing.
Shadowing is probably the most powerful and underrated technique in this whole thing. It's where you turn passive listening into active speaking practice. You basically just repeat what you hear immediately after the speaker, trying to copy their exact accent, pace, and rhythm. You're their echo.
That sounds incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
What are the specific benefits that make it worth the effort?
The benefits are physical. It obviously helps your pronunciation because you're forcing your mouth to make the right shapes. But even more importantly, it trains the rhythm and the prosody of English, the music of the language. Where the stress falls in a sentence, how words link together.
So it's building the muscle memory for the flow of English.
Exactly. You are literally building muscle memory for speaking at a native cadence. It makes the whole act of talking feel less foreign, which builds your confidence for the next stage, which is actually speaking.
Okay, so we have the foundation, the vocabulary, the listening skills. Now we have to face the music. Output, speaking. This is where everyone freezes.
Yep, 90% of learners get blocked right here. It's that fear of judgment, what some linguists call the affective filter.
And the material has a really strong, non-negotiable rule to fight that fear. Speak from day one. No waiting until you feel ready. That day is never going to come.
You have to start working that production muscle. Even if you only know how to say, "my name is," and "I like music," you have to say those phrases out loud immediately. It's about building the habit of production no matter how basic it is at first.
But what if you're shy or you don't have anyone to talk to? The notes have a great zero-risk solution for that. The power of monologue, basically talking to yourself.
It's a super effective, totally private way to build fluency. You just describe what you're doing in English as you do it. I'm opening the fridge now. I need to put on my shoes. This coffee is too hot.
Your family might think you're going crazy, but it's for a good cause. Why does saying it out loud work so much better than just thinking it?
Because you are physically executing the act of speech. It does three things. One, it removes the fear of judgment. Two, it builds muscle memory in your mouth and tongue. And three, it forces your brain to retrieve all that common daily life vocabulary in real time.
This leads right into another key point about speaking. Embrace simple grammar. Learners often try to build these really complex sentences, and it just makes them sound slow and hesitant.
Oh, absolutely. The experts are clear. Complex sentences are not necessary for good communication. In fact, they get in the way of fluency. Clarity and flow are always more important than trying to sound sophisticated. Simple sentences are easier to automate in your brain.
They give a perfect example of this. The overly complex sentence to avoid is something like, I would have appreciated it if you had informed me, which is grammatically perfect, but
Right.
wow.
Right. It's a mouthful. It's hard to retrieve under pressure. The simple, fluent, and perfectly clear alternative they suggest is, please tell me next time.
It says the exact same thing, but it's instant. It's clear. The goal is to get the message across, and the simple sentence does that faster.
Exactly. So once you're comfortable talking to yourself and using simple structures, the next step is finding partners. And the notes say there's really no excuse not to practice in today's world.
Right. They point to things like language exchange apps, online communities, and now AI tools.
The AI part is a complete game changer. You can use something like ChatGPT to have a conversation about anything, get instant judgment-free feedback on your grammar, and you never have to worry about bothering a real person. It's a tireless practice partner.
So the takeaway is just start speaking today, even if it's just to the wall. Okay, so we've touched on using simple grammar, but let's dive a bit deeper into how the sources say you should actually learn it without all the pain.
Yeah, this section is all about feeling the trauma of high school grammar class. It completely reframes grammar. It's a support tool, not a set of traps designed to make you fail. It's there to make your speaking clearer, not to block it.
And to avoid that feeling of being overwhelmed, they say you have to learn it in small, prioritized chunks.
Yes, they create a very logical priority list. Before you even think about complex tenses, you must master the big three: the present tense, the past tense, and the future tense.
If you could do those three, you can say when something is happening, now, before, or later. That covers, what, 90% of what you need to say in a normal conversation?
At least. And the way you learn these rules is not by memorizing charts. The experts strongly advocate for learning through patterns and examples.
This idea of pattern recognition is so key. It's how our brains are wired to learn. They give a great example using the verb work.
Right. You just look at the set. I work every day. I work yesterday. I will work tomorrow. Your brain immediately sees the pattern. You see the ed ending for the past. You see the will for the future. It's intuitive.
You're not trying to recall Rule 4B for the simple past. You're just absorbing the structure.
Exactly. And to make sure you don't get overwhelmed, the sources have one simple rule to prevent paralysis. One grammar rule per day is enough.
That feels so manageable. It's sustainable. You master one small piece before you add the next.
And finally, they say you should correct your own mistakes, but gently, and not in the middle of a conversation.
Ah, that's a big one. Stopping yourself mid-sentence to say, wait, no, I should have said went, not go. It just kills the flow.
It destroys the flow. The correction can happen later when you're reviewing or practicing your monologue. In the moment, your job is to communicate. Grammar is the servant, meaning is the master.
Okay, so with the active skills of speaking and listening covered, we can move to the skills that support and reinforce all that learning.
Right. This next section shows how it's all one big loop. Reading and writing are the skills that solidify everything you've learned through listening and speaking.
And the first piece of advice is about what to read. Don't pick up Shakespeare on day one. Start simple.
Yes, they suggest things like short articles, children's books, which are great because they use that high-frequency 80-20 vocabulary, and news articles written for learners. You want to stay in that 60-70% comprehension zone.
And reading shouldn't be passive. They have these active reading techniques.
The core method is this. When you see a new word, you highlight it. But then, and this is the key part, you guess the meaning before you look it up. You force your brain to use the context clues. That process of deduction makes the word stick so much better.
And to connect it all back, they recommend you read aloud. This turns reading into pronunciation practice.
It's multimodal learning. You see the word, you say the word, and you hear yourself say the word all at the same time. It bridges that gap between passive knowledge and active production.
And then there's writing. Same rule as everything else. Consistency is key, a daily writing habit.
The bar is set intentionally low so you can't fail. Even just 5 sentences a day is powerful. That's so achievable.
And it can be anything, right? A journal entry, a comment on social media, a short message to a friend. The goal is just to produce structured language without the pressure of writing a big essay.
Right. Writing forces you to slow down and think about the grammar and spelling in a way that speaking doesn't allow.
And a final little hack for improving your sentence structure: copying good English.
This is where you literally rewrite well-written sentences from a book or an article. You're not copying the ideas, you're copying the structure. By doing that, you start to internalize the rhythm and flow of good English syntax without even trying.
It's like training your hands by tracing the work of a master. Okay, so we have all these amazing individual techniques. The final crucial section is about putting it all together into a daily plan.
This is the blueprint. All those great ideas will fail if you don't build a routine around them. The sources provide a really practical, simple daily English plan. It's designed for 30 to 60 minutes a day.
Let's break down that hour. What does it look like?
Okay, so the first 10 minutes are for vocabulary. You're using your flashcards and the 5-word rule. Get the high-leverage input done first.
Then 15 minutes of listening, using the 3-step method or doing some shadowing.
After that, 15 minutes of speaking. That's your monologue practice or a chat with a language partner or an AI.
And you finish with 10 minutes of either reading or writing to reinforce everything.
This structure is genius because it guarantees you hit all 4 major skills every single day in a short, focused burst. You don't end up with unbalanced skills.
And this all comes back to the main behavioral lesson of this entire deep dive. Consistency beats motivation. A little bit every day is so much better than cramming once a week. Motivation comes and goes, but a routine is what gets you to fluency.
And to make that routine really stick, you have to change your environment. You have to create immersion.
First step, and it's non-negotiable. Change your phone's language to English.
Everything you do on your phone, every notification, every setting becomes a tiny English lesson.
Then you switch your social media feed to English. You listen to English music, watch English movies. Your fun time becomes study time without feeling like it.
Exactly. You make English the default background noise of your life. So even when you're not in your focused 60 minutes, your brain is still absorbing the language.
And the very last piece of advice is maybe the most important. Enjoy the process.
If it feels boring, the answer isn't to quit. The answer is to change the method, not the goal. If you're sick of flashcards, spend that time rewriting sentences. If you're tired of the news, listen to a funny sitcom instead. You have to stay flexible to stay consistent.
What an incredibly practical and honestly empowering blueprint. This really lays it all out.
Yeah, this has been a masterclass in efficiency if we just quickly summarize the biggest takeaways.
For me, it has to be the vocabulary strategy. That 2,000 words unlocking 80% of conversation. That's the ultimate shortcut. It gives you such a clear target.
And that systematic approach to listening, the 3-step listening method, is such an actionable loop for training your ear to the real rhythm of the language.
And I love the advice on speaking. Using the zero-risk monologue technique to get over the fear, and focusing on simple, clear sentences to build speed and flow.
When you put it all together, the big message that comes through from all these documents is so liberating. Success in learning English is not about some innate talent. It's a mechanical process. It's about strategy, consistency, and active engagement.
Every single piece of advice is about turning passive interest into an active daily habit. And the notes end with this really powerful final thought for you, the listener, to take with you.
English is not learned by talent, but by daily practice. Speak often, make mistakes, and never stop. You now have the blueprint.
You can learn English faster than you think. Now go start that 60-minute routine. And remember to narrate what you're doing out loud.
Until next time on The Deep Dive.
Welcome back to The Deep Dive. So today we are focusing on, well, one of the most cringe-worthy social situations imaginable.
Oh, I think I know where you're going with this.
Right, that moment you bump into an acquaintance and poof, their name has just completely evaporated from your brain. We're going deep into a dialogue to pull out the strategy you need.
Not just to survive it, but to actually handle it with some real social grace.
Exactly. So our source material is built around this scenario. A guy, Nick, runs into Anna. He met her at a conference. They talked about something important like foreign investment.
And now he needs to follow up, but he cannot for the life of him remember her name.
Yes, and our mission here is to pull out the vocabulary, the fluency builders, and the actual communication tactics that can turn this potential failure into a success.
I like to think of this as a shortcut to mastering the social mechanics of English. It's not just about words, it's about how you use them to save face.
A lesson in linguistic diplomacy.
Yeah.
Love that. Okay, so let's unpack Nick's first move, which is just pure social engineering. It's his exit strategy. He uses the phrase, "I'm in a bit of a hurry."
And that phrase is gold. It really is, because it creates an immediate, socially acceptable reason to leave.
Right.
When you say you're in a bit of a hurry, you're basically saying two things at once. First, you're busy. Second, your reason for leaving is external, not because you don't want to talk to them.
You know, I sometimes worry that sounds like a really obvious excuse. Do people actually buy it?
Oh, absolutely. Because it's an idiom everyone understands, especially in professional settings. We all know what it's like to be in a rush.
Yeah.
It saves everyone from making awkward small talk when there's just no time.
So it's efficient and polite.
Exactly. And it's so versatile. I mean, the source material gives great examples. You could say, "Can you drive faster? I'm in a bit of a hurry."
Or if someone asks for your attention, "I can't talk right now. I'm in a bit of a hurry."
And you can even use it to, manage your work. Something like, "I'm in a bit of a hurry, so I'll check these files later."
The material also mentions the synonym, "in a rush." Are they pretty much interchangeable?
Almost entirely, yeah. "In a rush" might sound a tiny bit more urgent, a little more emphatic, but both phrases do that same crucial job of setting a polite boundary.
Okay, so Nick has his exit plan, but he still needs to make sure he can follow up about that whole foreign investment thing. Which brings us to our second point, securing those contact details.
This is a very savvy move. Instead of getting stuck on the fact he forgot her name, he pivots straight to action.
So when we say contact details, we're just talking about the basic info, right?
Yeah.
Name, email, phone number.
Yep, all the stuff you'd find on a business card. And the beauty of this is how it signals his intent. He offers his card, asks if she still has his details. It gives their connection real weight.
It's like a professional bridge. He's saying, "I have to run, but our last conversation was important and I want to continue it."
Precisely. He's projecting professionalism and future engagement, which smooths over the awkwardness of his quick exit. It's strategic.
Okay, but now we get to the moment of truth. The polite panic can only last so long. He has to admit it.
This is the peak embarrassment moment.
And he handles it with this perfect phrase. "You know what, this is really embarrassing, but your name has just slipped my mind."
Slipped my mind. It's such a diplomatic phrase. If you just say, "I forgot your name," it can sound a bit harsh.
A little careless, maybe.
Exactly. It implies you didn't pay attention. But when you say "it slipped my mind," it's almost like it suggests the memory itself just escaped. It wasn't your fault.
It totally diffuses the situation. I mean, think about other ways we use it, like for a missed email.
Oh, for sure. "I'm so sorry I didn't respond. It just slipped my mind." Or even for something bigger.
"Oh, it's your birthday? It completely slipped my mind."
Right. It always implies it was an accident, not that you didn't care.
And Anna's response here is just a masterclass in social grace.
She's brilliant. She immediately says, "Don't worry about it. It happens to me all the time." And then she shares her own vulnerability.
"I'm terrible with names, too."
And that just normalizes everything instantly. It turns a really high-tension moment into a chance to bond over a shared, very human problem.
That's a huge lesson for everyone listening.
Yeah.
If you forget, apologize diplomatically. If someone forgets your name, be gracious. It can save a whole connection.
Absolutely. Now let's rewind a little bit to the very start of their chat. Before the panic really hit Nick, he opens by asking, "Do you live around here?"
This is such a great example of linguistic nuance. These little location phrases are what make you sound fluent.
For sure. So around here is simple. Just means close by in this immediate area. Like, is there a bank around here?
But the sources point out how easy it is to mix up these small words. Let's talk about around here versus around there.
Okay, key distinction. Around here is for your current immediate location. But around there refers to a general area near a place you've already mentioned.
Give me an example.
So if we're talking about, say, Los Angeles, I might say, "Oh, LA is a great city. I used to live around there." It means I lived near LA, not on this specific street corner where we're standing now.
Right. So asking, "Is the coffee shop around there?"
Yeah.
when you're standing right next to it would sound weird.
Very weird. And then there's the even more specific one Nick uses, "right around the corner."
Which is an intensification.
It signals the absolute closest proximity. It's on the next block, maybe just a few steps away. It's very specific. Getting these 3 levels down, around here, around there, and right around the corner, is a huge step toward sounding more natural.
Definitely a top fluency builder for today. Speaking of which, let's move into our final section. Let's talk about some more of those conversational phrases and the really practical social coping tricks from the source material.
Okay, let's start with Anna's greeting. She sees Nick and says, "Nick, how's it going?"
We hear this all the time. How's it going? Is so much more natural and relaxed than the more formal, how are you? Or even, how are you doing?
It's a subtle shift, but it really projects warmth. It makes you sound much more genuine and approachable.
Okay, and let's go back to that phrase Anna used to make Nick feel better. I'm terrible with names, too. That structure, terrible with, is so useful.
It is. It's a great way to admit a weakness and build rapport. You confess a small flaw and you immediately become more relatable.
And you can use it for anything. Like,
Yeah.
you're terrible with numbers, you can't even remember your own phone
Or
number.
my personal one, I'm terrible with directions. I'm always getting lost.
I've heard I'm terrible with faces, too. People who can't remember what someone looks like. It's such a simple, ready-made phrase.
And this all leads us to the ultimate payoff, the real social recovery tactics. What do you do when you just can't bring yourself to ask for their name?
The source material had 2 fantastic bits of advice. The first was this terrifying story about forgetting a family member's name.
Yes. Forgetting an acquaintance is one thing, but this person forgot their own uncle's name.
At a family reunion, the name was just gone. And the only way out was to just call him Uncle all day.
Just a desperate move to survive the day. But thankfully, the advice for a business setting is a lot smoother.
A lot smoother. It's the business card trick. When you've forgotten the name, you just ask for their card.
But what if you don't have one to give back or you want to be even more subtle?
This is where the email trick comes in. And it is socially brilliant. Instead of asking for their card, you ask them to write down their email address. Maybe say you need to send them a link right away.
And the genius of that is?
The request is about taking action, not about your memory failure. You're collecting contact details, not admitting you forgot them. And crucially, their full name is almost always right there in the email address.
It's the smoothest way to get the information without any of the shame.
That really is the key takeaway. So to recap, we've got the diplomatic apology with slip my mind, the tactical exit using in a bit of a hurry, and these great fluency phrases.
Like, how's it going and terrible with. What this all means is you now have a full strategy to handle this really common awkward situation. You sound more fluent, more natural, and most importantly, more gracious.
And that ability to recover without panicking is just priceless.
It is. So let's leave you with a final thought to mull over. The next time you meet a new professional contact, try that email trick right away, even if you remember their name.
Ooh, practice it.
Exactly. Challenge yourself to ask for their email just to make sure you can follow up. That way, you secure the connection and their name before it ever has a chance to slip your mind.
Go forth and connect confidently. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.